Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting, Bristol Council meeting of August 19th. If you could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and please stay standing after the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I wanted to have a moment of silence for our lost soldier and son, Sergeant McKenna. If we could stay silent for just a moment. Thank you all. If you were part of and went to the wake and the funeral for Sergeant McKenna, it was nothing but impressive. I had the opportunity, in fact, I was with Councilman Stewart, to drive back from the funeral to the cemetery, and it was quite overwhelming to see the, I would say, 2,000 to 3,000 people holding flags, holding hands to hearts, saluting. If I seem at a loss for words, it's because I am. It was just overwhelming. It was impressive. I didn't think that that kind of patriotism still existed in that number, and to that frequency. I also know this, is that there's a lot of people that thought that, including a general that attended the funeral, Rep. Marshall and Rep. Gallison. We're talking with him afterwards. He's been, unfortunately, to more than 25 of these, and he has never seen the show of patriotism shown by this town, this community, and the town of Warren. It is truly impressive, and we talk about being proud to be leaders of this community. I can't tell you I've ever been any prouder than driving there, to there, from there. The family is tremendously giving in a time of their greatest need. They showed strength that I don't think I could do myself. The hell that they continue to go through and the strength that they continue to show, and this gentleman passing away and still continuing to inspire people is just tremendous. My words fall short of what he represents to this community, what his family and friends represent to the community. Our hearts go out to them. Our thoughts go out to them. And I also think it's important that we, at this moment, remember all the veterans that have passed away, all the veterans that didn't pass away and are still with us. And we say thank you. In my short time of being on the council, my 2.5, 3 years, I have a new appreciation for the flag, a new appreciation for veterans, a new appreciation for, well, here's an example. I was on the ship, the Tortuga, and I was looking around. That was the ship that came in for the 4th of July. And I looked around at some of the Marines and soldiers, and I thought to myself that all of these men and women are willing to stand in front of a bullet for me and my family and you and your family. And that is just, I can't get my head around that. It's just tremendous. I'd like to, I don't know if my colleagues wanted to share anything before we moved forward here.
Mr. Chairman, I think you stated some key factors that took place over the past week, from the long-standing lines to the rumbling of the church that took place Monday during the ceremony as a fitting tribute to a man of honor, integrity, and bravery for all of us, as you stated, because if it's not for those men like Peter Andrew, that bravery, then we don't have any life, because that's who they're protecting, is our lives. So even though sometimes bravery doesn't live forever, it gives us the opportunity to have our families in our lives every day that they're fighting for us. And I just want to say, other than condolences, I know the solemn time for the family right now, they probably need some rest, but going forward, we can't forget that just from this past week, we have to go forward, not only as a community, but as a nation, to unite, like you stated, Mr. Chairman, on how everyone came out in full force. We have to keep that going for our nation and the world. And with that said, I think we should thank Carol and Peter McKenna next time you see them, and say thank you for bringing Peter Andrew into this life, to our community, to the world, and in everyone's lives that he touched that showed up this past week. Thank you.
And just to pick up where Councilman Stewart left off, I personally believe even though Sergeant McKenna is no longer with us here, he can live on in our spirit. We can keep him alive. And I am truly sorry to the family. My love and my support and prayers from my family to the McKenna family as they go through this grieving process. I can't imagine what they're going through.
I had never personally known Sergeant McKenna, but I was so pleased to have a few minutes chat with him after our 4th of July patriotic exercise when he had received from Senator Reid a flag that flew over the U.S. Congress. And I found him to be the most exemplary sort of serviceman that you could ever know. And he was self-effacing too. When I thanked him for his service, he said, you shouldn't just thank me, you should thank all of those that are with me and some who have given much more than I have. So at this point, that's quite a poignant statement for him to have made. And I think the patriotism and the feelings of this community in Warren are just totally appropriate and will remain with us thanks to this great hero.
I just wanted to concur with my colleagues and express my condolences again to the family and thank them for Peter's service and for making the ultimate sacrifice. They've lost their son, but everything that I've read about him and heard about him, he was a true hero in that he saved, they say, upwards of 300 lives that night, protecting his base. And the outpouring of support, I was looking for it in this art. I thought I had the right article, but in one of the Army Times articles that I saw online, they quoted one of the military people as saying they have never seen the outpouring of a town like they've seen in Bristol. And that is so true, from all of the people at the wake, all the people at the funeral. And so, as Nathan pointed out, impressive to see the folks lining the streets from the time we came out of the church all the way up to the cemetery. It was amazing, and it made me so proud as a Bristolian to see that outpouring of support for our hometown hero. Our police and our fire departments did an excellent job in working with Warren to maintain order and just to make the flow of traffic and everything work well. And it was just a remarkable experience, and it's one that I think that we should think of nothing less in a community like this. And we're so proud of everyone, and it was so impressive, but our hearts go out to the family and how they'll deal with that. It's so difficult. Sure. When there's appropriate moment, Mr. Chairman, I would like to just make a motion, if I could.
Please do it.
Okay, first I would ask that we move agenda item, I've got to find the number. I3 forward.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
Yes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And my motion is that, we all want to do something that is fitting for Sergeant McKenna. And we saw in the paper that they're setting up a scholarship fund, and it's in its early stages. So I believe it's going to go to a high school senior from Mount Hope High School. So my motion is that we contribute $500 to the First Sergeant P. Andrew McKenna Jr. Memorial Scholarship Fund from Council Contingency, and that we ask our town administrator to work with the Bristol Veterans Council and anyone else that he feels is appropriate to identify a fitting tribute to the sacrifice that Sergeant McKenna has made on behalf of all of us.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Excellent.
Mr. Chairman, Councilwoman Perrella did state something, and yes, thank you, Chief, for all your efforts with the statewide and federal for organizing this event. Your department did an outstanding job, along with your colleagues.
Thank you, Chief.
The fire department was instrumental in
Oh, yeah.
Bristol and Warren.
Yeah,
as well
they're
as
both
the
very
state.
impressive, yeah.
Just for a minute, you're absolutely right. I mean, as you can imagine, there was a lot of planning to make this go off. We owe it to Sergeant McKenna and his family and to our nation, involving the state police, Warren Fire, and Bristol Fire, all the way to escorting the body back here upon arrival to Quonset, and for the final resting at the cemetery. But I will tell you, there wasn't hesitation from anyone, and the funeral director was instrumental in making sure anywhere where we may be dropping something off, he was picking it up. So again, thank you, and we owe it to our community, as you said, for the outpour of support and for their cooperation for many of the citizens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well
Thanks,
said.
Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Clerk.
The next item on the agenda this evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pull item C3 to the and send it back to the recycling committee and the solicitor to update and resubmit for the next meeting. That's my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is submission of minutes of previous meetings, items A1 and A2.
I move those minutes be accepted as written.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is a public hearing. This is the petition of Michael Ferreira for Coastal View Incorporated, doing business as Guillory's Tavern, 198 Thames Street, petition for transfer of Class BV intoxicating beverage license to John P. Ferreira and others for Thames Hospitality LLC, doing business as Dirty Water Pub, 198 Thames Street. This is new owners, existing establishment.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, through the clerk, combine this B1 first and foremost, do the public hearing, and afterwards combine along with D1, D3, D4, and D5. Those would be associated with the victim license, dance and entertainment license, and amusement devices license, and also exclude items B2 and D2, which was a request for a closing of 2 a.m., which was withdrawn by the petitioner.
Second.
So there's a motion and a second to combine all. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So we're going to open up the public hearing. Anyone to speak in favor?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you.
Could you state your name, please?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, actually, members of the board, for the record, my name is Eric Brainsky. I'm an attorney on behalf of the petitioner, the new owners of Thames Hospitality LLC, doing business as Dirty Water. Just have a brief presentation, but if I may, I just have to say I'm moved tonight by your comments. Obviously, this has been a regional issue. All of my family is in the military, so I have to say that I'm actually have goosebumps up here, presenting a liquor
council
license
says-
application, and that's a first for me, so thank you for that.
This council says thank you to your family.
Thank you. So on to the business of the evening. This is a request for a transfer of the existing liquor license held by the Guillory's entity, Coastal View, Inc., as well as a request for the victualling license, request for an amusement license, which entails a pool table and a couple of stand-up video games, and a request for entertainment, live music, and dancing. To my left is Tyler Almeida. He's the future general manager of the new entity. The restaurant is going through some overall cosmetic renovations, but the layout, as Mr. Almeida will tell you, is essentially the same as Guillory's is today. We're not changing where the liquor is being served. We're not really changing anything except for the concept, the design, menu, and cosmetic items. We have a full security plan. We've hired a security manager, a gentleman by the name of Tom Estrella. He's a local fellow who's a Bristolian, if you will, as I understand it, and very familiar with the town. I know that we've had some initial correspondences with the chief and the fire department about our concept to make sure that we're doing everything that the town requires and that we are a future successful business to be able to work with the town, bring in some tax revenue and have a successful business. The larger restaurant group that owns the LLC, as you've seen in your application, they have some other existing venues in both Massachusetts and Rhode Island, all of which have been wildly successful. I represent most, if not all of them. I can tell you with certainty that they have an outstanding relationship with every community's police department, council, board of selectmen, whatever it may be. It's something they strive to do. So overall, that's what we're here requesting, is a transfer of the license. Mr. Almeida has a short presentation on what the concept entails, and unless you have any questions for me immediately, I'll turn it over to him, but I am, of course, happy to answer questions if anybody has them.
Well, I'd like you to report on one thing. We understand from the fire chief that there is some pending work that may not yet been done. What's the status of that?
It's under construction as we speak. Tyler, maybe you could address that. Thank you to Councilman Harrishaw.
Yeah, we had some minor issues when we were doing construction. We were doing extensive cleaning in the kitchen with that, so we're updating the kitchen equipment, cleaning out the hood, fire, the install system for the hood. I think that was the issue, but we've been working with local fire contractor, and they're in fixing it as we speak.
When do you estimate that'll be finished for the fire chief to check it?
It should be finished up within the week. We're just waiting on some new kitchen equipment to be installed, and as soon as that new kitchen equipment is installed, they'll update the fire install system and the hood surrounding it, so it all it's all become up to code.
When do you expect to reopen?
Pending this hearing and taxation, we should, again, as Mr. Bransky stated, it's just minor cosmetics, so hopefully in the next few weeks.
Oh, okay.
The hours of operation will be 11 to 1, 7 days a week?
Correct. Lunch and dinner, 7 days a week.
Can you tell me I know you own a couple of places in Providence. I think I know one of them. What are the other ones, and where in Massachusetts?
Well, we have Dublin Rose. It's an Irish pub that's in Seekonk, Massachusetts, located 940 Fall River Avenue. Also, I am also a manager at Rebel Lounge and Restaurant, which is located at 50 Exchange Terrace, which was formerly Rera, next to the Capitol Grill downtown.
I'm sorry, can you say that one again?
Rebel Lounge and Restaurant.
Do you own Whiskey Republic as well?
I don't. My partners do.
The company,
Yes.
I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the individual owners of the LLC are
Can you go
also
up to the mic?
principal- Oh,
Thank
sorry,
you. No, it's okay.
Some of the principal owners of the this LLC are also the principal owners of the Whiskey Republic, John Ferreira being one of them.
So are there just 3 establishments that they're all involved with, or are there multiple?
Multiple ventures. One venture really has nothing to do with the other. They're not related. They don't share anything. It's just they're in the business and they have a concept, they have a template, and it works for the base partnership, so to speak, but they're not related in any way, no.
Can you talk to this council about that? You said you have a template. What does that template look like? How does that fit into Bristol?
Sure. I think I had mentioned some of it before, and I know that Tyler can tell you about the specific venue, but the template always starts with, look, we're injecting ourselves into your community, you don't know us. And when I say us, generally speaking, the partnership of the LLC. Mr. Michael Ferreira, however, has been here for a very long time. The rest of the partnership has not been here for business purposes. So it always starts with coming into the community, establishing a good rapport with the council, the licensing authority, the police department with bars and restaurants. We all know what they can, the problems that arise with some of them. We always want to have a security plan. We want to have a good relationship with the police department so that if there's any sort of issue, we work together in tandem, in conjunction. Same thing with the fire department when you're dealing with, cooking and fire hazards, so to speak. We want to have that rapport, and as well as the public works director for a venue like this that parking is limited, we want to have a plan for it. So when I talk about a template, the permitting template, the licensing template is to establish a relationship because we want to say, look, we're here to stay. We run a clean business. We can be an asset to the town. We want to be here for a long, long time, or else we wouldn't be investing all this money in the community. As far as the business template, each place is of course different. Tyler can tell you a little bit about how this template for this particular location is going to work business-wise. So, Tyler?
Good.
So as far as, the hospitality industry per se, it all starts with great service and welcoming guests as if it was their own, and not necessarily Bristol being a great town. I mean, it's the same template that would fit into any town. I mean, it's basically we serve a good product at a reasonable price and have friendly service. I mean, that's kind of the base where we start, and then we kind of branch out from there.
A couple residents have asked me why the name Dirty Water. Can you, and how you can, not clean water, dirty.
Dirty
I think
water.
that one's taken by the state already, actually, that's why. So.
Dirty Water relates to a song. It, over time, has become the unofficial theme song for Boston and New England sport teams' championship. It's their unofficial theme song for winning championships in New England sports. So, because we're so tied to the Boston area, and teams like the Red Sox or the Bruins or the Patriots, when they win championships, it seems like that's the theme song when they play, and it kind of ties in with the sports bar theme.
So there's going to be a sports bar then?
Similar, yeah, it's going to be sports bar, tavern. Our menu is going to consist mainly of, wings and burgers, small appetizers. The place is going to be filled with a bunch of TVs. We're going to have the NFL package, displaying all the sporting events. We'll have some theme nights during the week. We'll have trivia a couple nights a week. Some things along those lines.
From looking at the menu that you submitted, it is a bar menu. I think it's more downsized from the previous owner, Michael Ferrera, and Finn's, looking at this. So I would imagine that you're more towards the sports bar than a restaurant theme.
Well, the menu is based off of the overall layout and the design of the kitchen. I can't speak for Mr. Ferrera and the previous business, but reading some of the reviews and things on that line, I designed the menu according to the design or the size of the kitchen and what we can, the amount of food that we can produce in a amount of time where the guest is comfortable and happy.
I'm very happy you brought up your template because as a council and previous councils here in the town of Bristol, we are pro-business, but we are a community and we look after the community in the sense of good neighboring and going by the laws and ordinances because we will take further steps as we have in the past, not as a threat, but just so you know, and it's a mutual relationship that we have to work together. So,
I think like the biggest issue that I have concern about is, I live in this area and I hear everything that goes on particularly on Thursday nights and see the kids coming up. I know that's a big night for students to go down, and I don't know what kind of, when you say you're going to have various theme nights, I know trivia is a popular event everywhere, but what other theme nights are you thinking about having?
Well, it's going to be very similar to the previous business. They'll probably have live bands on the weekends, DJs, live music between bands and DJs on the weekends. We'll probably have a trivia night one night. Another night we'll probably have like a wing night for Monday Night Football, debating whether or not to have like a karaoke night during the week as well. But other than that, that's all that we have so far in the plans.
Before we go any farther, I should remind everybody, obviously this is a public hearing, so we want to make sure that we wanted to get those questions answered initially, but we also want to allow other people to speak for and against once we close it. If we have additional questions, we'll certainly ask them of you. Did you want to add anything else before? Is there anything else? Obviously, we're not done with the conversation, but...
Correct. No, that's all I have now. I mean, I'm here to answer any questions that you guys might have throughout the hearing, so.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just submit, I have the certificates of good standing from the Secretary of State's office. The Division of Taxation is something we're working through, but I do have the originals for both the buyer and the seller entity, so to speak, if I can submit those
Certainly.
to the council. Who shall I submit them to? Thank you.
Thank you.
Have their licenses ever, any of their partnerships ever had their licenses pulled for any amount of time in any of the other establishments?
No.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
Hi, as you know, I'm Michael Ferrera.
Welcome.
I am 20% partner. I actually had been negotiating with John for roughly 3 years. We'd keep in touch. I really want to say this with confidence. I've done a little bit of checking on John, people who know him, very successful businessman. Him and I have hit it off. His character, to me, is going to be top-notch. I think the chief, I'm sure he did his homework too or whatever, but these partners I'm very, very comfortable with. I am stepping back. I am silent. Any issues come up, you'll be dealing with them unless he has my personal number. You need to call me, that's fine. But I have full confidence, and I did have a talk with Mr. Bransky saying I live in this town. It's still my face, and I know all of you, and everything's been really good. So this is somewhat of a farewell speech, but I'm not really going. But the past years have been a pleasure dealing with everybody. I had a rocky road in the beginning with a few issues, and I'm not saying this to be a good guy, a nice guy, or anything like that. But that chief right there with the open door policy and calling me back with any little thing and being proactive with me instead of reactive like the past administration has been such a plus and a big weight off my shoulder. So I'm just complimenting him. I've gone in there and I've had to take my medicine and he's given it to me. I know I do business a certain way, but I just want to compliment him, and I'm not saying that because I'm still involved, and it has been a pleasure dealing with you people. I haven't had to deal with you too much lately, which is probably a good thing. So I just want to say thanks for everything, and I'm still around, and I'll still be going in there once in a while. But I have full faith that Mr. Bransky and everybody with any issues that come up, should definitely be resolved, and I don't see many coming up. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Always nice not to.
Anyone else like to speak in favor? Anyone else like to speak in favor? Anyone else like to speak in favor? Anyone to speak against? Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Nicholas Heeman. I am the attorney for 423 Hope Street, LLC. I represent the developer of the Belvedere in Bristol. I'm also here on behalf of the 11 residents who live there. Obviously, they're very concerned with what happens at the former Guillory's location. With the template that was described to you today, a sports bar serving food really wouldn't be of much concern to us. However, knowing the other establishments that this ownership group operates in the city of Providence, that is what concerns us. And why a sports bar would request a 2 a.m. license, unless they're big Los Angeles Lakers fans in the town of Bristol, not many sports are on at 2 o'clock in the morning. Why a sports bar would require an entertainment license, would have a dance floor, doesn't seem to make sense to me. I've been to the establishments that they have, and I actually do a lot of this sort of work in the city of Providence. I often represent bars, nightclubs, and businesses. So it's interesting to be on the other side of this equation. And we're here because these residents have invested. They've made their homes at the Belvedere. Mr. Reuter, who you're familiar with, in developing that property, has invested millions of dollars in converting that building into a residential property. The town has partnered with him through tax stabilization in investing in a vision for that area that includes bringing more people to live in that section of the town. There's a second phase of development that's in the works, in which he's very much concerned about what happens at this establishment because it literally is next door to it. So he's probably the largest abutter in the area, and he's very, very concerned about this. You'll hear from one of the residents after I have the opportunity to speak that can tell you what they went through with Guillory's. And Guillory's was an institution of Bristol. I'm a graduate of Roger Williams University Law School. You know, I've spent a lot of time here. It was my home away from home for 3 years. But that was a known face. It was a local owner. It was someone who was part of the community. And this is a little bit different. Having done this line of work, I know that the best time to come before the council is this time because you can articulate a vision with no track record. And you can sell what you want to do. What most people don't realize is that any time once we walk through these doors, any business at their own discretion can change that business plan. So it's important, I think, for the council to really get a commitment as to what's going on. I mean, why do they need a dance floor? Why do they need an entertainment license? Why do you need DJs? Are they going to have DJs? Are they going to have live music? Those things you don't need to operate the template that was articulated to you here today. If you look at Whiskey Republic, it clearly caters, particularly on Thursday nights, to a younger crowd. If you follow their social media, if you have followed their advertisement, their marketing, they have DJs, they have dancing. The fish company before it had the same thing. I know it's not the same owners, but that's the way the layout of the establishment. If you look at Rebel, if you go online, you got flashing lights, you got strobe lights, you got a dance floor, you have a DJ booth. That to me doesn't jive with the vision and the investments that have been made in the surrounding area, and the people who've made those investments are very concerned about it. You know, you heard reference of a security plan. I think that, you know, our residents would like to know a little bit more about that. How do they plan to prevent underage drinking? You know, if you look at their licensing history in Providence, they have multiple violations for underage drinking. They have multiple violations that include breach of the conditions upon which the license was granted, specifically the Whiskey Republic. It's never been revoked. I don't mean to lead you. It's never been suspended. But there have been issues. They happen, but they need to be prevented. They can be prevented through the use of an ID scanner. They can be prevented through proper training of their door staff. Those are questions that when I represent clients, I know get asked of me very often. Usually I submit a written plan, both for the business and for the security, because it's crucial. I represent a lot of businesses around Providence College. It's a huge problem in a college town. It's a public safety issue. You have limited resources for police. For a sports bar serving lunch and dinner, probably not a problem. But if that's what we're concerned is, what happens after 11 p.m.? What happens when they have entertainment? What happens when they have DJs? You'll hear Mr. Bichet testify as to public urination, public intoxication, people throwing up in the property. Just today, the fence was broken down there. No one saw how it happened, but the owner did see people peering over, workers on the site. I don't mean to allege they did it, but property destruction in that area has been a problem for this developer for a number of years. So we have a lot of questions. We have a lot of concerns. We think, you know, obviously we don't want to be obstructionists of business, but I think creating a record for them to have to abide by is very important, because at no point under the law are you going to have more discretion over a licensee than you do right now. Right now you have very broad discretion, and the courts have said it in the case law. They have broad discretion to act in the best interests of the community. And, you know, I've appeared before the council. I know some of you outside of business, and I know you all to be people of high integrity, and I know that's what you want. But now is the time to have those questions answered. Now is the time where you have broad discretion to impose restrictions on the license, closing times, entertainment issues. Now would be the time to do that, because once you have it, and that's why people in this industry do it, once you have it, you can change it, and a whole higher level of due process once you have the license. Now would be the time to have these questions answered. I heard a very general description of a business template that, to me, does not mix with what we see in the city of Providence. And then, listen, I don't accuse anybody of misrepresenting themselves to the board, but having also represented a licensing board, those are the questions that I would ask. Those are the questions that I always look. And I represent the city of Central Falls. Those are the questions that I want to hear answered, because at the end of the day, when violations happen, that's what you're going to hold them to, the record you established today. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Obviously, our big concern is we're working on a second phase of development, and it's a big residential component of that, and people aren't going to want to live around loud music. One other point, I don't mean to drag it on, you hear a lot of hearsay in a small town. We hear of construction plans relative to some sort of outdoor component, whether it be a roof deck, or some construction of that nature. Now, they testified as to cosmetic construction, but that, again, would be of a very particular concern if there was going to be any outdoor expansion, the residents can feel the music. The bass shakes the walls of their condominiums, and that's subsided for the time being while the business has been closed. But once you open the can, it's a lot harder to close it than what you're able to do right now. So I thank you for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, I just have one quick question, and that is, I'm not a huge fan of many of the liquor establishments, as you may know, but this is one business switching over to another business, and, we've had many concerns over the years that we have expressed, and we've not been shy to, give limited, trial basis kinds of things, or to bring owners before us if we need to, and to make sure that we have whatever requirements or conditions in our police department. If you went to Roger Williams, you know that pretty much the entire Bristol Police Department that is on at that shift is at Thames Street and State Street and Church Street. So what I'm curious about, and ever since I've seen the plans for your client, I've never quite understood why they want to put a building at the location of State and Thames. Because it is not only this establishment, it's several establishments in that area. And, I don't know why they would want to invest that money there, and why, and I think people have to be very cautious when they go to purchase something there, that they know what it's like on a weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, probably the most those evenings. And I live a couple blocks away, and I see it, and we've had, vandalism on this property. And so you can go up State Street and then pumpkins or, whatever time that something's out, flower pots, just any given night, they can all be broken. So I think it's a grave concern in general, but, I think that you have to be fair, and it's not just this establishment. When you talk about your client's investment, it's a number of establishments, and I've seen kids on Thursday nights myself. I think Mike had me come down there one night when he was having an issue, and there's just groups, large groups that are going from one place to the next, and so I think that it's a tough situation there.
Well, I think it's a balance. Any town or city with a college or university presence, it's part of what goes with it. At the same time, you have to be a good neighbor, and they've represented they want to do that. Councilman Stewart asked them straight on and spoke to that. And again, what they've said here today really wouldn't be problematic. I question why they need to be open late. I question why they need an entertainment license beyond a pool table. I question why their floor plan has a dance floor in it. That's what we're concerned about. We're concerned about that late night noise. And obviously, closing time with bars like this are always going to be disturbances, and the police are more than well equipped to do that. But the way you train your security staff also can impact that. Different ways of exiting, closing up a little bit earlier, turning the lights on an earlier last call. Those are different ways to deal with that. I think to answer your question relative to why that kind of investment, I think, I represent a number of developers in Providence People want to live in historic buildings. That's the first phase of the Belvedere. That historic preservation, what great stock. I had the opportunity to go in there today to meet with the residents and just walked in, and the view and the sunlight and the natural light, it's beautiful. What a great thing for people to be able to live in a place like that. And obviously people want to be close to the water. And I think there's a market for it. Restaurants, sports bars, they don't really impact that. Quite honestly, people want to live around those things. But late-night establishments, and I speak from experience on the other side of things. I represent a lounge on Atwells Avenue that's dead across from a condominium. If I could go back in time and tell my client, do not buy this business, go somewhere else, I would do it, because it's not going to end well. It's bad for the neighbors, it's bad for the police, it's bad for the business. I'm in front of the licensing board for them twice a month. It just creates a bad situation, and I fear this is going to be a very similar situation if it expands from that business plan, which I thought was very general and just doesn't match what I've seen in the other establishments.
With all due respect, I had a nice conversation with Mike Ferreira over the weekend, and he worked very closely with the police department, and every night that they closed, the police were there, and they worked together, and they worked in harmony, really. And I'm looking through the recommendations, because really our police department is that eye in the sky, and they do a fantastic job here in Bristol, that they're recommending to grant approval. And from what I hear, you've made a lot of accusations about noise, vibrating, damage, and all these other situations. But, Chief, looking to your recommendation on some of these statements, could you just
Sure. To elaborate on it,
please?
as
Thank you.
I don't think anyone's new to this and to the establishment that's been there, and as the attorney said, he's frequented it quite often in his time at Roger Williams. As we spoke earlier, meaning the council, this establishment's been in place for a long time. Mr. Ferreira has had some rocky roads. There's no secret. He's been before you. His license had been revoked at my recommendation. Allowing these individuals to come in with a strong understanding that nothing's going to be done that hasn't been done in the past as far as holding them accountable, that's not acceptable, and it's not going to be tolerated by the police, who, as you said, we're out there in force, and we're going to react to any complaint that's put before us as long as there's some validity to it. I assure you we will have some high visibility. The night supervisors will stop in there. They'll introduce themselves as they usually do, he or she. And like anything else, if there's something we need to address, it'll be done quick and swift, as I say all the time, and it'll be right before you, and action will be levied against whoever the individual that may be running the establishment at the time.
Thank you.
Was there anything else that you wanted to add, Mr. Heeman?
No,
because I want to make sure,
Sure.
we're still in the public hearing portion, so we'll certainly have more conversation about this.
Just to the councilman's point, I have full faith and confidence in the Bristol Police Department's ability to enforce the rules, regulations, the ordinances, the noise ordinances. It's just a question of what they'll be enforcing against. What I heard was this is going to be a sports bar. If there starts strobe lights, flashing lights, neon lights, dance floors, and DJs, that to me is a lot different than a sports bar. So I just want to make sure that the record was clear as to the template that was articulated, and to me, it doesn't match the rest of their requests. That's the only point I was trying to make. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak against? Please. Sure. We pack them in here on Wednesdays. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is David Brian Bechet. I am a resident at 423 Hope Street, Belvedere. My wife and I own Unit E. E is in Edward. We also have two small dogs that we walk all the time. So we sort of have I feel like I'm part of the neighborhood watch a little bit. We're out at all hours, right before bed, going for a walk. So we see a lot of stuff outside. So I feel like I've got some experience on what goes on in and around that area, that hotbed there. So our concerns are, there's three basic categories, and they've kind of been mentioned, but I just want to go on record. And the residents, we got together. I'm kind of speaking on behalf of my neighbors. Okay, so it's not just me, but my neighbors that live in Belvedere as well. So there's the noise, there's the vandalism, and then kind of a safety, quality of life kind of concern. So on the noise, the sound travels up the hill pretty effectively, and when it's kind of a dance floor disco kind of thing, you hear a boom, 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 very, very loud that flows into your unit. It's hard to say sleep with your windows open or something like that. You hear that thud. And then the people, I think it's no secret that drunk people have serious volume control issues, right, when they're walking in and around the area, especially like right under your master bedroom window. It feels like they're right there, right? So the condition of the people, and I'll make my point here in a second. Then on the vandalism, we've had our fence that's partially surrounds our property broken at least 3 times in the last year, from the traffic, the drunk people kind of going up and down Thames there. And then we've had landscaping damage. I don't know, it looks like people fall in some of the landscaping, or I don't know what causes some of the damage, but we've recently experienced some landscaping damage. And then on the safety and quality of life things that are very important to us. I mean, we're finding broken bottles, people publicly urinate and vomit around the area. And my point is, two of them. First of all, the age of the clientele matters. Okay, so we've lived here longer than a year. We've seen a whole cycle, and for sure, the Roger Williams traffic is louder and seems to be a little more out of control. And they pick up the Roger Williams shuttle right outside our window there, right down the street from where we are here at Hope and Court Street right there. And I guess their tuition pays for that, and they all get drunk and get picked up by the school shuttle right there. So they're very loud right there, and that's where my window faces, right there. So the clientele matters is my point. And also all bars are not created equal. So, for example, the Oyster Bar that we see right across the street from where we live, it's a very respectful place to the community. It's a good place to go. It's not. They don't make a lot of noise. The clientele seems to be well behaved. Never had an issue. And in fact, recently when they requested to have a patio, outdoor patio there, we discussed it as residents, and you didn't hear a peep from us. It sounded like, okay, if they want to do it, sounds like a good idea, because it's, they've demonstrated that
they're a good neighbor?
Yeah, they're a good neighbor. Thank you very much. So it's not all created equal. So when I hear that, we're going to serve good food at a good price with friendly service, and we're going to have trivia night, that's not a business plan. That's not very specific. And so, they also said they've been wildly successful. We're worried about the wild part, and we'd like to hear more specifics about what is it going to be. Go on record about what it is you're going to do there, so that when you don't do it, there's some recourse or there's some accountability that we can have for what's going on. So I'll answer any questions, but I'm just speaking my mind here. So.
Well done.
Okay. Question?
With the present establishment under Michael Ferrera before this transfer of funds, is
Yes.
this your statements of existing problems that you're stating?
Yeah, I think Finn's was a little bit of a problem, and one way to think about it is that's kind of a low bar about, hey, just don't be worse than the last guy. Maybe this is an opportunity to improve the community here, right? And saying, oh, as long as you're not worse than the last guy that was there, we're okay with that. I'm just speaking my mind here. This is a chance to make an improvement, and let's hold them accountable, and let's have a good neighbor go in there if we can.
Well put.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
I'll ask my questions after.
No, please,
I'm just trying to understand, because I believe the present establishment has an entertainment license. All these licenses that are being requested are in existence, that is attached to fins. And did you not have entertainment before, Michael? On the weekends, when you could? It wasn't every week, but you had the ample opportunity to have bands?
Yes, every weekend.
Okay.
I know you couldn't hear that at home, but Michael responded that yes, every weekend.
Every week, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak against? Please. Well, we already actually had the speak in favor. No, actually, it's not. We're actually at the speak against. Certainly, we're not done with the conversation. You're more than welcome to come up.
Then I'll make it neutral. How's that?
You are a negotiating kind of guy. I'll work with you here.
Kind of.
I like your
It's going to
attitude.
be the Italian blood in me. I don't know.
It's working well, though. Could you state your name for the
All
record,
right,
please?
sure. My name is Lou Giusti, Bristol. I just have a question. The gentleman that just spoke, okay? When he bought his unit, did he take a look around him? What was in the area? Like, did he notice there were any bars? Did he notice that along with bars comes a certain amount of noise, a certain amount of promiscuity type of stuff? You know, I mean, not for nothing, but I grew up in this town, okay? That's been a bar for a very, very long time. Dame Street has always been loaded with bars, okay? The university moved in. That changed the landscape of the town a lot, okay? The college kids, do they like going down there? Absolutely, okay? Do they frequent Aiden's? Absolutely. Do they frequent the other bars? Absolutely. But these people that come in from out of town with lots and lots of money, okay, because Bristol is a nice town, but they figure this is a good deal. Even at 1.2 million, it's still a good deal compared to New York, Connecticut, okay? But it kind of shocks me that if you're going to spend that kind of money, you don't look around and notice that, like, there's 2 bars on the other side of you, a couple of bars down the street. I mean, that's something I would look at. And I don't have 1.2 million to spend on a unit. You know what I'm saying? I say, let it go through, because how much different, okay, is that facility going to be than it has been in the past? I don't see much difference at all, if any. Probably none. Probably none at all. Are you going to have college kids that get a little out of hand now and then? Absolutely. Okay, did I get out of hand when I was their age? You went around, Chief. Absolutely. Okay? But the fact remains that all the people who buy these units and come into our town know what's there. They know what's there. Don't come in and spend a year and say after one full cycle, okay, we've seen a problem, okay? Because if I was moving into a community, okay, I wouldn't move next to a bar. I'm just being honest with you. I just wouldn't do it, okay? You know it's there, it exists, it has existed, move somewhere else. Go to Westport. Go anywhere. Stay out of Bristol. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else like to speak against? Anyone else like to speak against? Anyone else like to speak against? Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So to remind everybody, we've combined a few things here, including the transfer of the liquor license, dancing entertainment license, amusement device. Did I skip anything? Victualling license, excuse me. So this is the portion of the...
Chief, are there any of those elements that you are troubled by?
Not at this time. You have my recommendation on every one of them there.
It seemed like you're agreeing with them.
I think,
Well, Mr. Chairman, you ready for a motion?
I think one of the, can I just make one quick comment, and that is, one of the things that I'm been troubled by in general, and it's state law, it's not really our doing, is a dancing and entertainment license, and what that means. So, if you want to have just a acoustical guitarist or a harpist at a brunch, you have to have a dancing and entertainment license. And there's no distinction, like there are liquor licenses where there's, wine and beer and others, that, and that's always my concern, that once you have it, you can do pretty much what you want in there. Now, this, because of the history of this particular, for good and for bad, and, it's been a lot quieter. I've been on the council when this establishment and others have been brought before us. I do think that that whole area gets, I don't want to say out of hand, because I think the police try to do the best to manage it, but I know, I hear the kids, they come up the street, I hear them all the time. I've seen them maybe another week or two, and we'll be back at it, but where they don't, when they're first here, they don't know where they are. I've been out there bringing my trash out, and they're like, where are we? Like, they have no idea where they even are and how to get back to school. But it's an entire area's issue, and I don't know that singling out this one establishment. However, I understand the point that we probably need to have a few more clarifications from the petitioner as to what they're going to do, and so that we can figure out if there are restrictions. I'm not sure if we can, like, I don't know, Mike, if we can legally say you can't have a DJ, or you can't. I don't know that we can do that with it.
There's case law on exactly that point. You can't distinguish between a harp or violin player and someone on an electric guitar. You just can't do that.
So the only thing we have to resort to is the noise ordinances and things like that,
Exactly.
correct?
They have to stay within your noise ordinance, and that's why that's there. And also, you're well aware that you can put some restrictions perhaps on the amount of time that if you're going to grant.
I agree with that, and actually that was one of my questions, and if you gentlemen wouldn't mind coming back up again, one of the questions that I had was, now that we can talk about the whole picture here with the dancing entertainment license, what is your plan for that? And a lot of questions that were brought up with, obviously this is your opportunity to answer those, but for example, when were you hoping to have entertainment? Every night of the week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights of the week? What kind of entertainment are you talking about? When does it stop? Can you address, and I'm asking a whole bunch of questions, I don't know if you're writing these down. One of them is the booming music. Can you address that? Were you the source of the booming music? No, you weren't. But a comment was made a little while ago about the bar being set over here. There's an old Japanese saying, which is kanai, constant and never-ending improvement. This is an opportunity. I agree that there's improvement possibilities before we move forward. What can we do to lessen the impact to the neighbors? And I also agree with the gentleman who was just up, with the neutral comments, I believe is how yes. I don't know if they were too neutral, though. But one of the comments was that you live next to a bar. I don't think anybody was surprised they live next to a bar. But that doesn't mean that there can't be good neighborly conduct back and forth. So address that. What are you going to do? When are you going to do it? And how can you improve it?
So those are very good pointed questions, Mr. Chairman, and I'm going to let Mr. Almeida, I see Mr. Ferreira came up, and the other Mr. Ferreira, no relation, address the specific questions. But one thing I forgot to mention during my little presentation of what constitutes our template, and it's an important factor, and as I heard these individuals speak, it occurred to me that, look, this is probably the most critical facet. We don't want to be bad neighbors. That is not good for business, because once we have a poor relationship with a neighborhood, we're here every week arguing about noise and public drunkenness and disturbances late at night. And part of these folks' template, the Whiskey Republic, for example, is directly across the street from 60 condos, John? It's Corliss, 70 condos in Corliss Landing. We have not had one issue other than a dispute over who owned a valet parking space, which we resolve with Public Works, with any of the neighbors. In terms of the City of Providence, we have an outstanding relationship. You can call Chief Clements with the City of Providence. We constantly work with their police department and reach out to the neighbors. And what I've heard these folks say, and what you're probably going to hear these folks say in addition to answering your pointed questions, is we have an open door policy. Look, call us. We want to fix this. If there's an issue coming from us, we want to be here for a long time, because eventually it's going to catch up with a bad neighbor, right? Not only is it going to catch up in front of you folks and the police department, but people just don't want to go to a place that everybody around them hates them, because it's a bad joint, bad neighborhood, and it has a bad impact. And look, I'm a Roger Williams Law student too. I was down here. I spent 3 years in Bristol. I enjoyed this town, went to the 4th of July celebration. I went to every single bar and restaurant around here. Some were rowdier than others. What I can tell you is that these folks in any one of their places have never had a problem with a neighbor, and have an outstanding relationship with the police department, and make themselves available by cell phone or by email, and make me available and pay me to speak with neighbors who have additional concerns from time to time, which I think kind of is going above and beyond. That being said, I don't know who wanted to
Can I just
speak.
comment on one comment? I mean, you made a really broad statement on that they've never had any problem with any neighbors. I just reading about the bars and following some of them, I'm not saying the ones they own, because I don't even know all of them, but, you know, there's so many issues in Providence with so many colleges. I find that, like, I just want to make sure that you're saying, meaning what you're saying, and you're not just saying, that's a very broad statement that you've never had any issue with any neighbor. Some of them are in not so much residential areas, like Dublin Rose, there's not like a lot of residential. I mean, it's residential, and that's the hotel part of it. But, I mean, that is an interesting comment, and I just hope that that's true, because it would be easy enough to find out through police reports and other things if that is not the case.
And it absolutely is the case, and I think it's a testament to my clients, and what type of establishment they run.
I'm talking about just like general calling the police because noise, not necessarily being brought in because
Okay,
of
I see your
a
question.
liquor license.
Look, if you're going to check on,
No, I'm just asking. You
if
just
you're-
said that there's never been an issue. I'm just,
right, what I guess I'm stating
You haven't
is...
had, like, you haven't been brought before the board, is that it?
No.
Is that what you mean? Okay.
What I'm suggesting is we haven't been brought before the board on a noise complaint. We haven't been brought before the board on a neighborhood complaint. But also, I guess what I'm saying is, look, people always call and say, look, we've had these issues. The neighbors like us. And you're right, it is a broad statement. We've never had a problem with the neighbor. Have the police ever been called down to the Hot Club in the Whiskey Republic? Look, it's happened, but my clients have always gone out of their way to resolve the issue, and I think what you'll find is they have an outstanding relationship, and they've never soured a relationship with any neighbor.
I think that
And
is a
maybe
more
that's better
accurate
put.
statement. I mean, I think it's kind of broad to say
I
there's
agree.
never an issue. I think like that you want to resolve it. If you hear about it, being brought before the board is a higher standard.
I agree.
You know, of what takes place there than, you know, neighbors being aggravated. Like when I just mentioned earlier that you can, at any time, it's certain times of the year, you can walk up State Street and every pumpkin's going to be smashed because the kids were exceptionally rowdy that night, then most people are not going to call the police and say, my pumpkin was smashed. They're going to go like, oh, geez, those college kids did it again. You know what I mean? So I think I think that's the kind of stuff that, you know, the neighbors are talking about. And I mean, you know, the urination, things like that that can be controlled by how much these people are drinking, by your bartenders and so forth.
Sure.
And, you know, how many people are allowed in, and, you know, the underage drinking issue, and it happens. I mean, I know the chief has gone through, and we've seen reports. I mean, it happens in probably the best of establishments, but it shouldn't happen, and it has to be really minimized to the extent possible. So I think that's what people are asking for in general.
Sure.
And you've got your establishment times, you know, 3 or 4 others down there that are also very busy at those nights.
So I'm
Before you do that, I'd like you to answer my questions in regards to
Sorry.
when you're going to be open.
Yes.
What you're going to do to improve the sound levels over there. So, if you would.
Thank you, and thank you very much.
Hello. You know, as we stated before, we will be open 7 days a week, serving lunch and dinner. We will have live entertainment, probably more than just the weekends. You know, we will have karaoke night midweek, there's been talks of doing a country western night. And those nights entail, whether it be an acoustic performance, a DJ, or a band. Again, and as Mr. Bransky stated earlier, that we want to create a good relationship with our neighbors. First of all, our neighbors are our customers. Without our customers, then we wouldn't be in business. So why would we want to jeopardize creating a bad relationship with our neighbors when ultimately they're the ones coming in and spending money and they're our customers? We have worked with neighbors in the past where we contact us directly. All of our security staff on the weekends have gone through an extensive training with a man called Fraser Algren in the city. He hosts a floor host class, and all of our security members go through that extensive class. And in that class, they're taught how to properly, talk to a guest on if they have any sort of complaint with anything. So, and all of our bartenders go through tip certification classes where they are properly trained on properly serving alcoholic beverages to the customers, knowing in the signs of when to stop serving a customer when he or she thinks that they have been to the point where intoxication. But again, all those training procedures are set in play for all of my staff, whether it's front of the house, back of the house, management, all this. Myself has gone through crowd control certification classes. Where in that class I was taught how to properly manage and control the flow and traffic, and that also alleviates stress levels throughout the business. But
So, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. Is there going to be entertainment every night? Is that what you're saying?
not every night.
So what nights wouldn't have entertainment? I guess, let me ask it that way.
Well, I mean, do you classify, Monday night football, wing night entertainment? Probably
Okay.
not, but...
Fair question, so I'll respond to that. Band, karaoke, acoustic duo,
Probably 3 to 4 nights a week,
DJ.
yes.
So what are you talking about then?
There'll be a mixture between throughout the week. Probably not Monday night. Tuesday night will be trivia again. Do you clarify that?
I don't consider that I don't know what my colleagues think, but I don't consider that. I guess what I'm asking is in regards to noise. How's
Yeah.
that?
Right.
Well, any night that we have entertainment, I mean, we are in total control of the noise. I mean, we have audio and video equipment that only management can control, that controls the noise levels, and it's not up to, say, a DJ or a band to control the volume of what's taking place throughout the particular reason. That's on our management, and we have every reason to stay within the ordinance on any given night that we're going to have entertainment.
So I'm sorry, I just want to be clear. So you're saying that every night, or not every night as in 7 days a week, every 7 days, but throughout, obviously Sunday is a different day. Let's be really clear on that one. So you're saying that you're going to have either karaoke or a DJ, or obviously you'll have something going on there, but I'm talking about those things. Karaoke, DJ, band, whether it's acoustic duo or full band, what is your intention? How many times a week do you think that's going to be happening?
3 to 4.
Thank you. In regards to the issue that we heard about the booming sound, you know what I'm talking about with that.
Correct.
How could we address that?
Well, it seems like that's a base issue. Again, I haven't worked in the establishment in the past, so I don't really know how the sound travels in now. But we will go through the extensive thing, and I'll work with the neighbors. If they have an issue with the noise levels, and they can speak with me directly, and we can alter it, whether it's that night or the weekend, but we have every intention to work with them directly to make sure everybody's happy. And again, I want to create good neighbors. Those good neighbors are our customers, so I want to keep them happy in all occasions.
I have no reason to think you're not a man of your word.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I just have a curiosity question, because you talked initially about the sports bar, And so Thursday nights are becoming like a Monday Night Football, like at least on TV, there's like, big game or whatever. So, but Thursday night's also like this major league bar night for students. So what would you be doing on a Thursday, do you think, during football season?
Well, for instance, on September 10th, which would be the Patriots home opener, we like to have a game day DJ per se when all Patriots games are on. What that entails is us playing the game sound when the Patriots are on. When the game goes to commercial, a DJ plays music and kind of does trivia questions, does giveaways with T-shirts, things like that. It keeps the guests entertained and happy, and it kind of gives everyone a good experience.
So you just answer questions, and it's a in-between fun sort of thing. It's not a...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean...
We don't expect that you're serving tea on a Saturday night. That's not what the expectation is. So, and if we gave you that impression, that is not the impression.
No.
We also don't expect that the neighbors think it's going to be silent. We don't expect that either. But somewhere between...
Tea party.
tea party and eking into your living room.
Party, yeah.
Now, I don't speak of a conversation outside on the street. I have no control over that. In fact, free speech allows. But the noise is a concern. And it was said, and it's a true statement, this is an opportunity for us to improve. These are questions that why are we spending so much time is a great question for right now. We don't typically take this long because there's been past history expressed by everyone here, including Mike.
Correct.
That doesn't mean it's been recent history of it, but if we're taking this much time, we want to make sure that we don't see you again. And if we approve this license, all the licenses that are in front of us right now, we'd prefer not to see you again, because that means you're a good neighbor, and that's exactly sounds like what you're looking for, all of you are looking for, but none of us here are afraid to have you come back in front of us again. We'd prefer not, because we'd rather have a good neighbor. So I for one, I've frequented Guillory's. I like it. I'll go back, whatever you call it, dirty water or whatever. But we want to make sure that we take the opportunity to make it a better neighborly. And Mike's standing right behind there. Don't take offense to that, Mike. This is improving time. So,
I agree.
I think on both sides, the valid questions and concerns. But what I've been hearing tonight, we have existing practices, and I am concerned of the neighbors. But we as a town, I think everyone in this room knows we strive to be neighborly because we know we have the balancing act of business and residents, especially in the downtown area. And Councilwoman brought up a good point, is, we're promoting our town, we're investing our town with tourism, and it is a landscape on Hope and Thames Street where people do move from place to place. So it is unfortunate that sometimes you get rowdier crowds that talk louder, while they're walking versus some that don't. But with the surrounding area, what I see tonight of a transfer, if everything is in place as existence without any changes, it's going forward of if your plan changed coming back, that we should really have the valid concerns. We have one of the strictest noise ordinances where our police are equipped. So whether it be underage drinking, noise ordinance, or vandalism or landscaping, this has to go on the record because we commend our police department and they do their job. And it should be part of a record. And that's when it comes before us and we have a pattern, as Michael knows. And we go from there. And we try to balance it because this is our downtown and this is how we're trying to have everyone get along. But as far as the chairman saying entertainment, would you think Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evening is accommodating for entertainment, such as a DJ, band, or karaoke? As he stated,
yes,
football, if it goes through the sound system and whatnot. But again, it's just the due diligence of, I know the back of your establishment, Michael. And it does fall on the business owner if there are complaints of, people congregating back there doing stuff. I mean, that's just communication between business owners and the town and the residents to say, can you keep an eye on that? You know, I mean, we have outdoor establishments right next door that they're outside watching TV. I'm sure you have louder nights over there, you know, just like we're talking about indoors at this establishment. So.
Can I ask you what your plan is? I mean, somebody mentioned that you might be building a rooftop deck, or, I mean, what is your plan for outdoor expansion? Is there one? Because that's been an issue of concern. I mean, you mentioned the Oyster Bar earlier. You know, they've been in here several times this year, and many of the restaurants, would put you in a different category than the restaurants, you know, have come in, so they have their dining, you know, in their liquor outside, and then there's, you know, some that want other things beyond that. I mean, what are you, I mean, I know that there may be, if there's a space on your property, that you'd be coming in to look for that. And that is something that is, you know, like, just like the 2 a.m. thing. Like, I mean, that's what Providence does, and so I think, I don't know if that's why you put it in here, but I think I'd be clear to say that I don't think anybody would go for 2 a.m. I know you've pulled it, but we don't want encroachment into that direction either. And so what is your plan for outdoors? Are you, like, thinking about building a rooftop deck?
Well, if you don't mind, I'll let my partner, Mr. Ferrera, answer that question for you.
John Ferrera.
Welcome.
First of all, we haven't even opened the business yet. We've talked about a lot of different things. We've talked about, you know, using the driveway as a patio. Whatever we did outside would not be with any entertainment at all. At Whiskey Republic, the only time we ever put a band outside, we have to go back before the board on a special occasion, whether it be 4th of July or St. Patty's Day, and get a extension of premise. The base, when we opened Whiskey Republic, I got to tell you, this crowd is a very calm crowd. We had people from Caller's Landing that, you know, I wanted to get escorted to my car. It was crazy, but they were used to Fish Company. Now, they come to the licensing board hearings and speak for us when we renew our permits. Every one of them have my cell number. We do a neighbor appreciation day once a year. Come over, strictly for the neighbors, you know, drink, eat, tell us what we can do better. We have a very good working relationship. One of the first things I do moving into an area is check with the neighbors. I heard there was going to be issues with the apartment complex, and I spoke with Mr. Reuter. Talked to him for a half hour. I found his number. I called Mike Ferreira, asked for his number. I called him, gave him my cell number, explained to him what we were doing. He told me his concerns. They're valid concerns. He's a neighbor. But I'm here to answer questions. I can give neighbors my phone number. I answer my phone 24 hours a day. I have children, so my phone's always on. You know, we are entertainment. I mean, it varies in the summertime. 4th of July, I mean, it may fall on a Monday, Tuesday, I don't know. But for the most part, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturdays at Whiskey. Will there be college kids? I'm not going to lie to you, of course. It's a college town. Will there be urinating out in the street? I can tell you, if there is, it will be dealt with. We have a lot of security. If you go into Whiskey Republic, which is a college bar for the most part, sports bar, I mean, my age people are in there all the time. At 10 o'clock, I feel like a grandfather. It's time for me to leave. But we have 14 security people on every Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We have them outdoors. They're not just inside. They're outdoors. They're at the perimeter. We have a really good security plan. I just want people to feel confident that we're going to do a good job. And I know how it is. I mean, we deal with it all the time. I'm in the construction business. You know, I deal with it when I open a gravel pit. I have neighbors. The first thing I do is give them my cell number. Everybody wants to call the police when the trucks are speeding. Call me. I can deal with it a lot better than the police can deal with it. I have been to a license board hearing at Whiskey Republic once for an underage drinking, and the manager almost got fired. I am absolutely against that. We will be all over that. Is it going to happen? I can't tell you it's not. Things happen. These IDs that these kids have are crazy today. We do the best we can with it. You know, it's something that is just, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. There's going to be a complaint about loud music. Call the establishment. Call me that night. I will deal with it. I don't want to come back here. I'm a very low-key person. I want to be happy, I want my neighbors to be happy, I want the employees to be happy, and I want to be a good neighbor, like Tyler and Eric said. And I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but the only reason we put the 2 a.m. license on, my attorney was a Roger Williams College student, and he said, oh, all the bars are open till 2 a.m. But he was, I guess when he was in college, Judge Roy Bean, and for whatever reason, it was just, when we heard it was an issue, we pulled it. So, not that I wanted to throw Eric under the bus.
I think you just threw him under the bus, to be quite honest.
So it was kind of, it was just something that all of our establishments have 2 a.m. It was kind of, when they filled him out in his office, it was 2 a.m. and it got sent in, and, as soon as I called him on it, we retracted it.
So let's do this. We've had a lot of conversation about this. History tends to repeat itself. That sounds like a bad thing, but we have an establishment on Wood Street that we had massive amounts of problems with. New ownerships took over, and it's quiet. And I mean quiet with no issues. Again, that's suggesting we had massive issues before, and that's not the case. There were concerns. They've been addressed. We don't want any more concerns. Sounds like you don't either. We have some qualifications that were suggested from the fire chief, from the police chief, requirements, excuse me, from water pollution. The fire chief in particular would like us to hold back approving the victualling license until the completion of the construction. I would like to suggest that this council approve this license if we see the benefit of doing that for 90 days. Have a review in 90 days with the intentions of moving forward with, we'll call it good behavior, positive good neighbor. That would be my suggestion to this council. What's this council's pleasure?
When were you planning to open?
The target date is September 10th. We're painting. We're not changing bar layouts. We're not doing any of that. We're painting, doing some kitchen work, some Ansel system work, basically upgrading a lot of that stuff, upgrading the security cameras, outdoor cameras, indoor cameras that will be monitored. So if the police come in a day after there's a complaint, we'll have cameras that they can look at that I believe stay for 2 weeks to a month. I think 30 days. After 30 days, they start erasing over. But
I just think that we should have a shorter period. That's all. Why I'm asking. I think maybe like 60 days. I mean, don't we do our liquors
I should have prefaced it.
December?
I apologize.
It's the first meeting in December.
So this would, 3 months would be from September 10th.
Excuse me, the last meeting in November.
November. So, I mean, it would be, the 90 days would already be in it.
Yeah.
Like, so I actually think we should have a review before that, before we go to the other, and then either decide that we'll continue it, like, just with the regular licenses, for the year, or if we want to put restrictions when it comes back up at the end of November. So I think it should be, like, 60 days.
That's
It's
fine.
actually November 4th is the meeting.
Oh, November 4th?
I had talked to the chief. The chief and I had a long conversation about this and suggesting some targeting times for review on it. And after talking with the chief, it was suggested 90 days, and the rationale behind it was that it gives you enough time to show, obviously we're looking for positives here, so show that you're a good neighbor. But I'm open to, Chief, do you have any objection to a 60-day renewal?
No, I wouldn't have any objection to it. I just think the 90-day gives you a little bit more time to prove yourself.
Yeah, but there's going to be a renewal
But we're
in the
going to be
middle of that.
renewal in November.
November 4th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, right, if you're going to have the renewal November 4th, that's basically 60 days.
All right, there you go. It's a good point.
That works.
Thank you.
Good.
I think, from the history on this, it looks like you guys are in good standing. I'd like to ask you one thing. Make sure you exchange your number with the residents so they guys can have a collaboration and make sure you guys are working together on a nightly basis. But we're happy that you're here, and we're happy you're doing business here. So wish you the most
Maybe with
success.
the police chief, too?
I will, the administrative police chief, my card has email and cell phone number and
Great.
office number. I'll pass them out.
Could you leave one with our
Fantastic. Thank you.
clerk as well, just in case
Yeah.
we ever need to
Thank you.
reach you?
Michael, I'd just like to ask you a procedural question.
I can make sure they get it.
Supposing we approve this now with a few conditions, which we're going to do probably, when the renewal occurs on November 4th, the council can change those conditions, can it not?
Yeah, when you renew any license, based upon the history or based upon any issues that come up, you have every opportunity at that point to add conditions, yes.
As though we're starting all over
Right,
again.
because it's an annual renewal. That's the whole purpose of the renewal, yes.
Yeah.
But if we wanted to put them not on an annual, and there was like a question, we could put them on for another 3 months
If you wanted to
and
do
then
another
whatever,
3
right?
months through
Or 6
February 1 or through April 1, yes, you could.
Perfect.
It's with that, Mr. Chairman, if I may, and I would like to thank Mr. Rortier, because as Mr. Heeman stated, there is an investment and partnership with Mr. Rortier, especially with his Phase 2. But with this, as is, no structural changes, just cosmetics, as you stated, for the record, is being done, and some kitchen upgrades. The bars will be the same, and everything interior will stay the same. I make a motion to grant the petition for the transfer of Class BV intoxicated beverage to John P. Ferreira, Thames Hospitality LLC, with the hours of 7 days a week, 11 to 1, upon all the laws and rules and regulations attached with it, and recommendations of the town administrator, police chief, and only to be granted once the fire chief and water pollution does the inspection and signs off on it. That's contingent with this motion, that you need that for this to move forward, and everything associated with that. Also, I would like to attach the Victorine license, which is D3.
Yep.
Associated with that, upon all the laws and ordinances and recommendations of the department heads, and the same thing with the approval of the fire chief wastewater treatment plant to sign off before that goes forward. Also, D4, which is dance and entertainment license. On behalf of myself, I think because this is a beginning of a relationship, I think for the time being, I'm willing to do Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for the dancing and entertainment license at this moment, since we're going to do a 60-day review. And also attached for approval, D5, which is the amusement devices associated with the business, upon all the laws and ordinances and recommendations attached with that.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Is there a discussion? Hearing no discussion?
Just want to be clear, the dancing entertainment license is restricted to 3 days only.
Yes.
Okay.
That was the motion, and it was seconded. There was no other discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, just a quick point of clarification. On
Sure.
the entertainment, we're talking about what you were talking about, DJs,
So you need
bands.
clarity on that? Yes, DJ,
Well, no, he
Well,
said
no,
entertainment
wait.
license.
The license
I apologize.
it says public entertainment of any kind. So that would include something like karaoke, it would include trivia, it would include public participation in, like, remember we had the discussion about the mystery thing? That's entertainment license. So if you want to change the restriction, you can, but I would say you can't have like an advertised public entertainment.
do you want to speak on that? Help us out on that?
Even a public participation
Yeah,
thing. is
I
like-
think Lou is right. I think before everyone goes, we should clarify. My reading of the council was music, band, karaoke is what you were talking about. If I did not read, unless this
I
is what
agree
you
with
want
that.
to do.
I agree
If
with
they're
that.
going to have a trivia contest on a Tuesday night, or they're going to have a Monday night football game on,
I don't have objection to that
Yeah.
personally.
right, so why, when you say entertainment limited to Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, then you can clarify that that's music, outside, not outside, but in other words, a band or musicians or a DJ.
Or karaoke.
playing or karaoke.
Well, they said that during the football games, they have bands of DJ that does trivia, right?
Right, but they'll be
So
doing
that
that
means you
on
can't do that.
Thursday.
Yeah, they won't be able at this time to do it on a Monday.
Yeah.
That's correct.
For the
They would
first
not.
60 days that you're granting this.
That's
Yes.
correct. Does that give you clarity?
So just to be clear, my clients can't have like a trivia night or Monday night football for the first 60 days of...
No, they can.
of-
Can.
They can.
They can.
They can.
They can.
Yeah.
Okay, so what, And thank you, Mr. Ursullo. I think I know what we're talking about. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you're talking DJs, live entertainment, that sort of thing.
To the councilwoman's point, is you can have Monday Night Football, you just can't have the DJ blaring the music on Monday.
But we could have him in between doing trivia and giveaways and things like that.
Right.
Is it without a DJ, or is it
You can't,
with a DJ or without
clarity.
a DJ?
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, no DJ for anything whatsoever. So you can have your trivia and all of those things, but no DJ, no karaoke, no band, no live music on those days. Those things can happen Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. That was the vote. And we voted, and that was seconded and voted, so that is done.
Okay, I just raised a couple of concerns that has to do with revenue and business. Right now, I'm with Tyler. We're trying to book something on a Monday and Tuesday night, like 7 to 9, where there's a band. We get calls right now, because of their reputation, calls for private parties upstairs. And, I mean, I can't even tell you how many little anniversaries I've done on a weeknight quick or something like that, where there's entertainment, there's DJs. This kind of does put a 60-day damper, especially opening. Like, we're opening, we're going to get a lot of calls. We have been, and we got to tell people that we can't hold something on.
Unfortunately, you are going to have to tell them that, because this will be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And as the solicitor mentioned, and my colleague made the motion, it is only for 60 days. We are hoping for positives here. We want you to succeed. And you can say, well, doesn't this get in the way of success? I say this is 60 days, and we will find, I think you're going to come to a great end on this. I really do.
I understand, but like trivia, they play music while people are thinking so that nobody can hear the answers. If somebody leaves a window a little bit open and then a neighbor hears it but doesn't call the police and then comes before you, it could raise some issues.
There was also a discussion extensively addressed about the dancing and entertainment, and it was 3 to 4 days, but never specified, and that's where the communication comes in. Yeah. So most of the entertainment, I believe, is happening on the weekends. I understand during the week there's special events. We have other establishments, and you're well aware of this, that come for a special use for those. It's just at this time, I think the feedback from the testimony tonight, from all in this town, I think just for 60 days, granting everything, and just coming to the review, like the chairman said, I think we'll have a positive outcome.
We hope for a positive.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, and I promise I'll be 20 seconds.
You got 20 seconds.
I'm just asking the board if they would consider something. It is going to impact, 60 days, you're talking thousands and thousands of dollars that I think is going to be impacted. So would the board entertain this? For the first 60 days, we've already had the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we understand. And we understand your position and sympathize, and we're with you, we'll do what we have to do. But suppose there were some, I'll call them isolated, specific instances where these folks had to come in and ask permission for a specific night.
They don't want to do that. I don't want to be any clearer than that. You got 60 days, and I want to be friendly here, but you keep pushing it. I'm hoping, and I really want, and I think this whole council does too, want you to be successful. We really do. So
thank you. It's worth asking the question. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Okay. The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, we have item C1. This is the ordinance 2015-14. This is an amendment to the zoning code relating to land development projects, resource conservation, and creative development overlay. This would be the first reading and call for a public hearing. The public hearing on this, I think it has to be advertised 3 weeks, right? And it also has to go to the referred to the planning board. So I think it would make sense to have the public hearing on September 30th. Does that make sense, or are we longer?
Well, I'd like to suggest, Diane, for the benefit of not only the councilors but those who are here in the TV audience, that you just summarize what is the significance of these changes.
Okay. So the changes to this section of the ordinance regulate the process for the planning board to review and approve a major subdivision or a major land development that is a conservation development.
And that's a limit of 5 or so.
Right, we're
residents.
actually setting standards right now.
That's the same way as now, isn't it?
Well, it is and it isn't. For this particular provision in the zoning, which is a conservation development, there is only one way to review an application, which is it bumps everything to a major land development, regardless of the size, regardless of the density. So we have had an application come forward for 2 lots. We said, you're going to be a major land development, full, master plan, public hearing,
Diane,
2 or 3 meetings.
in keeping with where you're going with this, would you help everybody just kind of know a major subdivision?
Oh, sure.
What does that mean, just big picture? You don't have to get crazy with it.
So there's 3 different types of subdivisions that are reviewed. Administrative subdivisions, which are when you're just moving a lot line, you're not creating a new lot. Minor subdivision, where you're doing 5 or fewer lots. It's a preliminary and a final, 2 steps. And then there's a major, which is master plan, preliminary, and final. And the board can combine those steps, but they would still need a public hearing. There's a long list of requisites. It's the longest, most complicated process that the board would use for reviewing an application.
So it's creating a more streamlined process, simplifying.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you,
Yep.
yes. Thank you. So the way the ordinance is written now, there's a provision for a conservation development, which is a good way to preserve open space, preserve historic features, preserve natural areas that we want to protect. But regardless of the size of your development today, in that provision, it would be a major land development. It would be all 3 steps. So if you're just creating 1 lot, if you're creating 2 lots, something relatively smaller in scope, it would trigger the major land development process. So this would streamline it and create a threshold so that smaller projects could be a minor subdivision or minor land development project. If you're doing a road, you would trigger a public hearing, but it would still be a minor, and then major would be for the larger scale projects.
Well, I have 3 questions about it.
Okay.
Number 1, is there any state law that relates to this same topic?
That would be the subdivision and development review regulations, and the state law.
No, but I mean the environmental element of it.
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
Well, I'm wondering, oftentimes when we put through changes such as this for zoning, we're in part brought to that by state laws. But is there any significant state law regarding this sort of thing?
I would say this is in the category of becoming more business-friendly. The whole idea of doing a conservation development is a very positive thing. It's positive for the community, for the environment, et cetera. But right now, as Diane said, if you're just going to do 1 or 2 or 3 units, you have to go through this very long, involved process. This is going to shorten that process if you're 5 or fewer and put it in the same category as a minor subdivision.
Right.
So it's going to help business people get through the system in a much more efficient way. And
Well,
it
I think
makes
that's the
total
key thing
sense.
for you to explain to us, because
Thank you.
my own impression of reading this was the opposite, that it was
Oh,
going to
no,
complicate
yeah,
things.
I understand your point. Yes, no, this is going to actually make it easier and more business-friendly for people. And we thought, why should we put these poor people through that long 3-step process and that when you don't have to?
Is there any bad that comes with the good? Anything, does this open up opportunity for abuse in any way, shape, or form that you can see here? It sounds like a good, positive thing.
Well, it will. I mean, in terms of the positives, I'm hoping that it may incentivize people to think about a creative subdivision and set aside open space and environmental areas that we want to protect.
Yeah.
I think right now, the ordinance, the way it's worded, requires every application to have a public hearing. The revision will only require some applications to have a public hearing. So that would be a difference.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I do have questions, but it's relative, I think, that gets supported by our existing zoning that's already on the books that probably pertain to the lot sizes and whatnot that might open up some questions with the wording. Just a few words, but this is a first reading, so I just want to make a motion. This constitutes the first reading of ordinance 2015-14 of Chapter 28 of zoning of these revised additions to be heard for a public hearing on September 30th.
Yeah.
Clerk,
Yeah, you didn't.
if you
Or
could
another
move it
date
out.
specified by the Director of Community
Thank
Development.
you. If you could move it to the first meeting in October, that
October
would be...
21st.
October 21st.
So that would be October 21st. We're going to move for a second hearing and public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a nice recovery.
Similarly, another amendment to the zoning code to allow certain special use permit standards for various uses.
This was by my request. I had talked to the solicitor going back a few months in regards to compassion centers and marijuana. The reason why I'd asked for this was to be proactive as opposed to waiting for state laws to change, which it seems as though they may. This is zoning, and this would, pretty much what it does is limits the possibilities. What I mean by that is that we can't stop this if it's state law. State law supersedes anything that we do on the town level. So that being said, this will limit the possibilities of where these could actually be. What I mean by that is, and Mike, I know you're going to go in depth in this a little bit for us, and we appreciate that. But this would, what it does is it, for example, it can't be 1,000 feet from a school, 1,000 feet from a church, 1,000 feet from a playground, 2,000 feet from another center. They have to be well lit. They have to be obviously licensed and all the things necessary. And they also all require a special use permit. The significance of that, in my opinion, is that there's always a public hearing. That means that not one would ever be put in place without opportunities of the public to speak for, if that's your case, or against, if that's your case. So instead of waiting for an applicant to be in front of us and have to scramble around and deal with these specifics, have no one in front of us, as we do right now, and have the opportunity to put these systems in place. So, Mike.
Yeah, as Nathan said, this is more anticipatory and proactive than anything else. Various cities and towns in the state, the marijuana laws have changed. They're going to continue to change. It's going to be available, and individuals are going to have rights that the state is going to set forth for us, and it's going to continue to expand. What we have found in other communities, and we're actually in litigation right now with one community, is where there's no zoning in place which specifies which areas of town different things can happen, and as Nathan mentioned, what type of distances you should be from playgrounds, etc. When you have no regulations in place, that leaves everything open. So therefore, the town is liable to have, like for instance, in the town that I'm dealing with right now, with a problem, they're growing marijuana in what used to be a cinema in their downtown. And that is not something that is pleasant for all the people and businesses downtown. This ordinance does permit personal marijuana cultivation in your own residence under certain circumstances, and there's no permit required because that's allowed by the law. However, if you want to go into some kind of business, you want to begin growing and making an agricultural type of business and sell it, etc., the purpose of this ordinance is to define how that process would take place. So, in other words, there are zones that it is or is not allowed. In zones that it is allowed, there's a special use permit that you have to obtain depending on the type of activity. This is very new to all of you. This is something that is being looked at in more than the town of Bristol, I assure you. And the idea was to get something in front of you, that's why it's here tonight, and then have the opportunity for input, have the opportunity for modifications, because it's not perfect. We can get it perfect, but we need to start somewhere. So this will form a base, hopefully, so that you won't be in a situation someday like other towns where you're in front of a judge instead of taking control of your own destiny, so to speak.
So,
I'd like to say that I agree with the chairman to get into this before we have applicants coming with no benchmark. But on the other hand, I find this rather alarming. Now, we know nationwide from what we read that medical marijuana was the first step. And there have been instances here and there, not in Bristol, but in other places where the medical marijuana commissions have been abused. And that we've read in the press sometimes where they've started to sell marijuana illicitly under the table and all that kind of thing. So I have a couple of questions that I might ask the solicitor. Would you say this proposed set of regulations is more or less restrictive than the current state law?
Oh, much more restrictive.
More restrictive.
More. And as I put in my memo, the state could ultimately adopt a statewide law that overrides all of these zoning
Well,
ordinances.
as a matter of fact, I read in some of this that there is the opinion that the Speaker of the House expects passage of some more liberalizing elements of this in the coming session.
Right. But so far, you're right. And what I think they mean by that is right now they're limited to 3 compassion centers. They might expand that to more than 3 so that other communities that want one can have one. We are not hearing up to now, though, that they are going to regulate the zoning area and basically say that you can't zone these types of activities. It could happen, but we're not hearing that right now.
In that regard, one of the elements of this proposal that I found rather alarming is that with the reading of this, you'd almost think we're just not only giving permission, but maybe condoning. Anybody who lives either in a 2-acre zoning down to a very small 6,000 square foot zoning can grow marijuana in their backyard. Well, to me, that's a big jump from the way the Bristol civilization has been prior to this time.
Individuals actually have the right to do that right now under state law. We're just sort of defining what's allowed, but we're regulating. If it's for individual use, Halsey, and you've got the right medical sign-off from a doctor, you can do it in your backyard today, and with or without this.
But doesn't this say you can do it even if you don't have a medical reason?
No.
No.
It's illegal.
You have to have that card
So
from the
this
doctor.
yes here means that you can do it if the doctor says okay?
Yes, you've got to have the
But it doesn't say you can do it just if you want to plant a few seeds.
No, I think then the chief and his department will be arresting you.
All right, well, I think that needs to be clarified.
Okay.
Well, anyway, my uncertainty and effort to try to understand this represents really dragging my feet. I agree we've got to do something, but I think we need a little time, even before a first reading, to study and contemplate this a little more. That's what I would suggest, Mr. Chairman.
No, I don't have any objection to that whatsoever. The chief and I spoke today, and I'm sure that, I know that he wants to make sure that he has any concerns addressed on there. And I want to make sure he has the opportunity, so does everybody, to speak and look at this. So if this council wasn't ready to do first reading at this point and we waited till next time, we have time. And that's the whole point on this. We're in no danger of making it any better if we do nothing, though. So we're at the mercy of anything that comes in front of us if we don't take action. But we are also at a time that we have some time.
I think this was a great first step, and that's what I was going to suggest. As you stated, Michael, this is all new to us, and I think, as Councilor Herreshoff said, as he's going through it, he has a lot of questions, too. I was going to suggest a workshop between the council and the chief and people that, and the administration, just to have a dialogue and some input in a informal manner like that, and then progress if need be, that you know, we need the time. I just want to throw it out there for conversation and hear from my colleagues if there's enough time between the readings, or, as the chairman said, do we hold off and then have the workshop and then a first reading again? I'm just conversing with you to hear from my colleagues on how you feel.
Honestly, I think that it makes a lot of sense to get as much input as anybody wants to share with it. This is obviously speaking about zoning in particular. It's kind of like how they got, I won't even go down there. This is the opportunity that we have, and it seemed the best opportunity, but I also think that public awareness about it and public input and obviously the chief's input is extremely important. So I would not be opposed to a workshop to have some more discussion about this before we had a first reading.
Right, so maybe the motion should be to table this. We won't actually set a date, and then that way a workshop date can be decided on, and we'll reintroduce it as a first reading at a future point.
Can I just ask a question before
Yes,
you do that? Just if we're going to discuss things. The personal cultivation, I mean, I think it's good to be proactive. I do agree with Halsey to some degree. When I first looked at it, I said, is this an invitation for people to take this up in our community? But I understand, like, once I spoke to Nathan about it, and once I understood where it came from, it made more sense to me in terms of why we're doing this. Just on the personal marijuana cultivation, where the chairman said there would always be a public hearing for all of this, but I would think that personal marijuana cultivation would violate HIPAA law, wouldn't it? Because you have to have the...
And I think I made a slight correction to Nathan's overall.
Okay.
When it comes to personal cultivation by a card holder, there would not be a requirement.
It's a great point of clarity. Thank you.
It's the business aspect.
It's the business aspect only, well, all the business aspects that would be regulated, but
Right.
not
Well, I just wanted
for
to
an
make that
individual.
clear, because that was here, and then the comment
Sure.
that the chairman made, I just
Sure.
wanted to double-check that, so
Thanks for
I
that
think...
clarity.
Mike, I just have a quick question in regards to the state. The state is crafting, they haven't really crafted a law yet, so we're crafting an ordinance based on theory right now, but I understand proactive, which I think is good.
Actually, the state has laws on medical marijuana in place. The state does not have a law that overrides the zoning power of the cities and towns. And since there is no such zoning control, our thought is, let's put some zoning controls in place so that at least the community, through a process that can identify issues with someone who wants to cultivate it for a business, will at least be in areas in town that we feel are better than other areas.
Well, it strikes me that that is the right situation. The town should retain its zoning authority, even though the state, quite logically, has control over the entire basic issue of medical marijuana. Yeah.
I would ask my colleagues, instead of tabling it, that we continue it to September 30th, because I don't want it to come off the radar. So.
Could I just ask you one other question, if we're going to think about anything other changes, and that is the issue that took place in Warren in relation to, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like a bar, where people could come who had these licenses or permits to come and smoke it in a public place. Is that covered in here?
No, and actually, that's a good point, and I actually brought an article with me this evening concerning a marijuana vapor lounge that was popping up somewhere. We actually were going to include that type of thing in this after. It literally just came up this past week.
I think,
it's a great point.
I wouldn't want to see us in that position, and I would like to see it nowhere allowed.
We'll make sure that we address that along with comments from the chief and anyone else in terms of what should be addressed.
Okay, thank you.
So can I have a motion to continue this to September 30th, and then also included with that motion to set up a workshop for public discussion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is the matter of the solid waste.
That was continued?
We already took care of that one,
Yep.
didn't we? Yes, okay, I'm sorry. Item D6, this is the petition of Berta Raposo on behalf of St. Elizabeth's Church. Request council consideration for one-day dancing and entertainment licenses for September 11th, 12th, and 13th. You have recommendation of the town administrator, chief of police, and fire chief to approve with certain conditions.
Upon all those recommendations with the conditions attached, I move that we grant the one-day entertainment license to the Center Crystal Committee on Friday, September 11th, Saturday, September 12th, Sunday, September 13th, Friday and Saturday being 6 to 11, and Sunday, 6 to 10 p.m.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Just for clarification, I didn't look at the petition. Those hours you quoted is what they requested? You didn't amend that?
I would never do that to somebody.
All right, okay.
No, he didn't.
Okay, the next is the petition of Brenda Gorman and others doing business as Gorman Clocks, 499 Hope Street. Request council consideration for a holiday sales license. This is item number D7.
Motion to grant the holiday sales license to Gorman Clocks, 499 Hope Street, with all the laws and ordinances pertain to it.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I
Thank you.
noticed that cute clock out there.
The next item is the petition of W. Stanton Wilbur, 103 Bradford Street. Request council consideration for the removal of an accessible parking space in the vicinity of 106 Bradford Street. This would be the first reading.
I actually reached out to the applicant here, and they're not actually the person which, I know the handicap spots don't belong to specific people. They can be used for everybody. But this particular handicap goes to a resident, and I believe they're at another address on Bradford Street. So I didn't know if the chief was looking into this or not, or if we've reached out to the person who applied for it, just to be sure.
The 106 Bradford is the location of the spot. Mr. Wilbur lives at 103.
Right.
Right.
And he says that this person has
Right, yes.
parking space in their driveway, is what they're saying, for 3 or 4 cars, so they shouldn't have this on the street. But sometimes people may have better access. I don't, we should look into it further.
When I spoke to the Wilbur, she was saying that she hadn't seen this particular resident who had used it in maybe 2 years. A lot of younger people are now living at that particular residence, so she couldn't say for sure that person didn't need it anymore. So I'm just trying to make clarification that before we remove it.
Should check it out. I mean, maybe they moved
So
to
maybe-
nursing home.
Until the chief
Well,
comes back.
this is something that requires a second reading.
So I was,
Okay,
That's
so
a good point.
That is a good
that's
point.
why we have the 2-reading process. So I mean, you may want to just refer for recommendation.
that's what I was going to say. This constitutes the first reading, and that we need the recommendation and investigation on behalf of the police department.
Very nice.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Thank you. Good points, too.
The next is a petition of John Martin and others, 2 Vasta Lane. Request council consideration for a 2-hour parking limit on Vasta
Did we take
Lane.
this out?
This also, I was going to refer to the police chief upon his recommendation.
I just had a question about this that I didn't understand, though, Tony, and the 2-hour, and they specifically cite snow plows during snowstorms, and the plows wouldn't really be out if there wasn't like a major parking, like usually, they might go out, but usually there's a parking ban that goes along with it. So rather than 2-hour parking, wouldn't that be better enforcement of that particular area on the parking ban? Kevin or
The chief
Tony or
has-
somebody, I don't know.
Chief hasn't known.
Okay.
If I could, Sergeant Morado did speak with Mr. Martin, and it's my understanding he's withdrawn his petition as far as wanting the 2-hour parking there. It would almost be impossible to control that. You have someone that has a party over the house, whether it's Christmas, a birthday party, what are you going to do? Be playing musical chairs, moving cars up and down the street?
Yeah.
So,
Well, it seems like just enforcement of the...
Right,
of the-
so
of
what
the,
the recommendation was made, he
parking
has some
bans.
valid concerns. We advised him that we're going to monitor it, and with his assistance, we'll control it. And if it becomes to the point where we need some assistance from the council, we'll ask him to come before you again with whatever we see fit.
Well, I can certainly accept that it'd be very hard to control. I also think the rationale in this request that it bears on the snow plowing situation is nonsense. I don't think it has anything to do with that.
So, Mike, as a process here, because the applicant, I have no doubt in the chief's words, do we need something from the applicant to withdraw it, or is this a receive and file? Help me out here.
Yeah, I just do a receive and file, and if the applicant comes back, he comes back, but it sounds like he's...
I would move that we receive and file F2.
Second.
We have a motion to receive and file. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item F3. This is Petitioner Robert Healy on behalf of Ben Luke, request council consideration to allow for additional Class BV liquor license.
You've been waiting very patiently, Councilor Healy.
Welcome.
I do. Thank you. It's been a long time since I've been in front of the Bristol Council. It's a pleasure, as always. Michael's laughing. He's been here too. You've been here too long, Michael. Anyway, this is a request that the liquor license number for BV be upped, which you have to do by ordinance, I understand, and so that a request can be made by Mr. Luke and his Bristol Buffet, which he would be looking to do business on Mount Hope Avenue, the old site of Tweet Balzano's, the building that he purchased. He didn't purchase the business, he purchased the building itself. So he's looking for a liquor license for that particular establishment.
Could you provide us a little speculative insight to the character of that anticipated business? How big is it? Is it food and all that kind of thing?
He's looking to do a buffet business at that particular place, family-oriented business. Obviously, when families go out to dine, they're not excessive drinkers. It's not a bar crowd. It's not whatever's looking for a nightlife. It's really just an accessory to do his business, which is really a family business. He wants to do family meals. Largely, that's not found a lot. I mean, we have wonderful restaurants in Bristol, I'll admit. However, you don't really have a lot of family dining establishments, and I think he wants to keep that.
True.
He wants to keep that available for the people with children and such.
I know that you're saying to, or asking to create a new license, but
Yes.
there is a license that's connected to, in some way, shape, or form, that address.
That's the unfortunate part about it, because there's some way, shape, or form is actually what it is. The license expired on the 1st of December when it wasn't renewed. For some reason...
Did the license expire?
Well, here's my understanding of how Bristol...
Hold on one second.
Okay.
Yeah, it was renewed. It will expire.
Been issued.
Right, it will expire November 30th of this year.
So it's not expired right now?
That's not my understanding.
You're saying the council renewed the
The
license?
council renewed the license. I
Last
think
year.
I explained that to you, Mr. Healy.
I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah, no, it was renewed, even though that the basic paperwork wasn't filed, but through a matter of course, because we assumed it would be, which
Okay.
it does happen sometime, it was part of the advertising process, and it was effectively renewed.
I misunderstood then. It was renewed contingent upon paperwork being filed,
Exactly.
Still not.
but the paperwork
So
was
we have
never
a
filed.
current
Right,
So
so
it's still renewed because we've always taken the position that within 1 year of the renewal, the paperwork can be filed. It doesn't expire until the end of the cycle.
there you go. It hasn't been issued.
Okay.
It's sitting there.
Okay. My clarification, I'm sorry then. Then that's the situation. There is, I guess, an existing license to a other business, but that business no longer has a place to situate that license. So I don't know how that license still could exist, but...
Well, let's get clarity on that. If I'm assuming it can exist, can it be, how would it be transferred if it could be transferred?
The way it would be transferred is that whatever paperwork Lou still doesn't have in his possession would have to be updated, and then the license would be there to transfer.
Is time critical on this for the restaurant?
Well, to be honest with you, the other way of doing it is waiting for December 1st, when there is no possibility of a renewal of this license, and asking for the freed-up license at that point in time.
Well, it sounds to me as though we may not have to wait to December 1st, but we might want to wait 3 weeks for the clerk to sort it all out. Is that right?
Well, the clerk doesn't have anything to sort out. I mean, obviously, the council renewed the license. The policy is that during that period of time, that individual, and we've had this happen, okay, can come forward and produce the documents necessary to have the license issued. In a case like this, it would typically be through a transfer, okay? But we have, you know, once one of these things has kind of gone into into this limbo mode, we've waited for either the person to come forward until the end of the line, or there was a transfer. Okay, it has never really happened that this hasn't happened, and the licensee or the former licensee has in their possession a letter from us telling them that basically they have until the end of the license period to have it issued to them, or it will expire. And that's it was a letter that was written by me and approved by the solicitor in many other cases.
But I just have a question, though. I mean, if the business is no longer in business, so if they came in and said, I want to do that, they would have to transfer that license to another establishment, correct?
And that's usually exactly the way it happens.
Right. Because in the way we do it, there is, like in other cities, we've talked about this before, there's no value attached to our licenses in the sense that, like you see in other, in other communities where this building already has a liquor license, and that's a big selling point for something, but we don't do it.
I can give you an example of how we've treated this previously, and it was the Rick's Restaurante that ended up being transferred to Peter Sebring, and the license is now at the Bristol Oyster Bar. And the person, the Rick's Restaurante did not own the building. It was owned by Mr. Andrews. They were not in the building any longer. The business was in receivership. The license was in a similar situation, and it sat around until Mr. Sebring came and had it transferred to him through the work of the attorney for the bankruptcy or the receivership.
But in this case, it's a little different, isn't it? Because this gentleman, Mr. Luke, owns the building, right? It's not it's not leased.
That's right. He bought the building, but there's still a license associated with...
But Tweets didn't own the building either.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. Tweets didn't own the building either.
Well, is there a way that we could ask them what their intention is, and if they would come forward to just transfer it?
Have you reached out to the prior owner and asked for to transfer the license?
No, because the business wasn't purchased, and the ongoing operation wasn't purchased at all. I'm sure for the business to seek renewal of its license at any point in time in December would be a near impossibility, although I am not overly privy to the situation.
Could you have two at the same address? Two licenses at the same address?
No, we would require the former owner to turn in their license, so to speak.
Well,
give us something in writing.
Right. That's what I'd like to clarify. What if the council indicated its consensus to oblige the request? How long would it take to contact the previous owner and straighten it out and transfer it? And could there be a hitch in doing that?
The hitch is that license that the prior owners own has several liens associated with it. There are liens from the Rhode Island Division of Taxation, and there are liens from a number of businesses, creditors, I guess. So
is that our problem or his problem?
No. Well, it's
a problem with the license.
Yeah, it's a problem with the license, right? It's a problem
But
with the
we've done,
license.
for example, in the past, before we've transferred a license from one entity to another, we've made it a requirement to have those liens satisfied.
Oh, absolutely.
On a transfer, it has to be done.
Has to be,
Yeah.
But on an issuance of a new license, it's not done. And in essence, we're visiting the sins of another business on a new business that wants to operate in your community, is really what's happening here. If we wait until December 1st, that license is going to expire on its own terms.
That's correct. It will expire on November 30th on its own terms.
And then there will be a license available. We're just looking for the possibility of stepping up that process, maybe by a month or so that Mr. Luke can open.
When would he like to open?
I think we're looking for an October opening.
October opening?
So, yeah,
Okay.
late October opening.
Can you
Mr.
open as
Chairman,
a
you know
BYOB
very
business
well,
first?
Hold on. One
I
time,
seldom
sorry.
would like to see another license, but what if we made an exception to that in this case? Build in a new license and grant it to this applicant, and then between now and December 1, clarify the situation with the one that's in limbo. And couldn't we then on December 1 reduce the number of licenses back to what it is? By eliminating the one that's tied up.
Doesn't hold this business back.
Well, here's what's going to happen. As of December 1, that license is going to expire.
And couldn't we
Still
then
on the
cancel
books.
the
So, yes,
authority for
so-
that?
So yes, it will still be on the books, even though it's expired, so you would have to reduce your licenses by one.
So I think what I'm proposing is that we increase the number now to give us an opportunity to award it to the applicant, and then we wait for December 1 to expect this license would be canceled but still available, and then on December 2, we could vote to reduce the number.
With everything that's been discussed, I'm not seeing this happening, but say it did. We add another license right now for the applicant, and the previous holder of the license we're talking about makes good on everything and goes to another building and opens up a business, he has a liquor license, we would be having an extra liquor license.
Well, you'd have to transfer it at that point, because the license is only good at the location that you've granted it for.
So we still have the...
You have that control, yes.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't see like the issue of the extra license, because I mean, the way we don't set a number and we take it on a case-by-case basis anyway, as applicants come before us with a business and a business plan. So I don't really see the issue in terms of, unless it's an address issue, like having two at the same address that aren't expired. That's the only thing I see as a potential issue.
Yeah, we need to get the other holder to turn in their license.
And the liens?
Well, the liens are, I guess it's up to the lien holders to deal with that.
Has this happened before? As in, have we had a situation that was similar to this? I can't think of one that...
I can't either.
Why would-
Normally, when you, like, for instance, tonight, you transferred a license, there was a $6,000 lien. That lien has to be paid in connection with that transfer.
But what I don't understand is, why buy a business? I'm sorry, I know you didn't buy the business, but if you'll just allow me to go down this road just a little bit, you bought a building that had a business with a liquor license. Why didn't you get the liquor license at the same time? It seemed like that would be an obvious next step. I don't know why go through the possibility of not getting a new license now.
I think the business itself is mostly a food business. The actual liquor license obviously enhances the business.
But it's not required, is what you're saying?
It's not required by the food license.
No, what I'm saying is that it wouldn't be required for your business? Is that what you mean?
We're looking for it to enhance the business itself, to make the business sustainable.
Okay.
Because it'll obviously add to the meal cost and the meal structure in putting it together. But Mr. Luke is looking to run a restaurant more than running a bar, so the liquor license was not of... I don't want to minimize it and say we don't really need it. We obviously need it, but we don't need it in a way that it's going to maintain or run the business. It's going to be the other way around. It's a supplement to the business as opposed to a need for the business to operate itself.
Can you open a BYOB business? I mean, if you don't have a liquor license, isn't it automatically a BYOB establishment?
It could be, but
I mean, in the first few months, if you were going to wait to that for expiration?
If worse came to worse, that's an option. The other option is conceivably a show cause hearing on the part of the council. Another option would be, I mean, there are several options. We're just here to present a request that maybe we can get a new license granted, or maybe if the other person is willing to turn in the license,
There's no question that the argument that you make in terms of, I mean, we have heard it countless times on the expansion of many liquor licenses, whether, outside dining, outside bars, et cetera, to enhance the business and make it profitable, et cetera. And here's a whole, restaurant that, with an owner that has 2 other establishments, correct? So, I mean, I don't believe there's issues at his other 2 establishments.
They're restaurants, obviously, restaurants. They're not.
Yeah. Sorry. So, I mean, can you just, either you or Mike, just for my clarification, the show cause hearing, we would do a show cause hearing for the former restaurant that was there, is that it?
No, there would not be a show cause hearing. 2 things. For you to create a new liquor license is a 2-meeting process.
Right, we have to do a public hearing, right?
Public hearing, amending the ordinance, et cetera. So
right.
that's not something, obviously, that could happen tonight.
Right.
You'd have to put it down, and we'd have to do that. In terms of the old license, either the present owner would have to turn it in by a letter saying, I hereby give up all rights to this license, because you cannot issue 2 licenses for the same place. The only other alternative, as Mr. Healy has pointed out, is that you wait till December 1, or if you create a license, you make it effective as of December 1, and at the same time you reduce the number of licenses, meaning the present license, by 1, so that you don't have an extra license hanging around out there.
So if I heard you correctly, the earliest this could possibly happen is December 1st.
Unless the owner of the current license sends a letter into Lou saying, I hereby give up all rights to this license.
Well, couldn't we contact that
Couldn't we
person?
actually, we can- One at a time. Wait.
Yeah.
One at a time, please.
My client says that December 1 is fine, but we will make an effort to contact and
That's very nice.
and see if we can get the person to turn in the license. But he says that if he has to wait till December 1st, he's more than willing to do that. He's going to operate, he's going to start the food business. We'll have to come back to the victualling license, obviously, before that, because he's going to start operations in October, but...
So what do we do to guarantee that Mr. Luke has the license for December 1st? I mean, let's say if you play that out and the licensee comes in for a new establishment to go to the transfer, then there's potentially, now we're potentially in January or February with this new license. So how can we, we're in August now.
Yeah.
So how can we make sure
what he would have to do is, and we have done this before, is the application for the license would run concurrently with your advertising to create a new license. That way, when you come to the second reading on the license, if you're going to create a new one, at that same meeting would be the application to either grant or not grant him that new license that would have been created that evening. That's the way you control that.
And that could be done around the 1st of October.
September 30th.
Yeah, you have meetings on September 9th and September 30th. Yeah.
If I haven't expressed it clearly, I've got, my concerns is that the transfer is kind of what I was sticking on versus new license. I have no objection to, at least from what's been shared so far about your establishment, what you're trying to accomplish there. I'm familiar with the establishment in Warren, and I like your teriyaki steak a lot, so it's not an issue there. But I'm concerned truly about the transfer, and that's why I keep asking the questions, is that those outstanding bills...
Those people do have rights, as creditors do under any creditor's situation. I mean, they've extended credit. They have civil lawsuits that they can file. They can obviously pursue the former owners on those particular issues, which I imagine either they're doing or not. Okay. Generally, the Rhode Island... And I look to Mike because I'm not sure that we agree on this, but generally the way Rhode Island operates has been that they've given a lot of protection to liquor people through ordinances, and that used to be through the wholesalers and all of that. So some of that came about that way. But they do not lose any of their creditor rights by your doing something completely different. In fact, I was in the wine business and a creditor of an account, and they did that to me in East Providence, so I know it was done. I don't see it as
I don't believe that it's the new owner's responsibility to pay an old debt. Let me be really clear on that. But I also believe that this council has the opportunity, when it does have the opportunity, to make sure that things go well. And that's what I'm concerned about in this instance.
Understood.
But that's not a reflection on you, your client, what you want to accomplish? Because
And as I indicated to the council, I mean, if we wait till December 1st, I can almost guarantee, I would bet lots of money on this one that license is not going to be renewed, so. But I mean, if we wait till December 1st, that's fine. If we can, in the meantime, get a letter having the license returned, if we could, I mean, my client will pay the advertising fees and what have you to put it on the 30th, and if it's not ready, we'll just have to ask that it move to December.
So, Mike, what's your suggestion on our next step on this? If this council sees the benefit of running them concurrently or whatever, what's our next step on this?
The next step would be that the applicant would file an application for a liquor license, a BV liquor license, and at the same time, we would set up first reading on an amendment to the ordinance.
Okay.
And and my advice would be, assuming that the old license owner is not cooperative or doesn't turn it in, any action you take would make the new license effective on December 1.
Okay.
Which would be the expired one?
Because on November 30th, the other one will have expired, yes.
And just for clarity, on a transfer, as you stated, the liens are associated with it, but on an expiration, they're not, it goes back to us and that's it?
It comes back to you.
So really, and only to Nathan's point of trying to address the creditor issue, it really only is if they transfer the license. The only way
so
just an expiration is not going to make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, normally what happens is the old business owner sells the business to the new business owner, and along with that comes the license, subject to your approval, because you must approve the transfer, and usually the proceeds from the sale are used to pay the liens. That's the normal process, but I guess in this situation, they did not buy the business. They bought the underlying land and building, and the entity that owned the land and building was a different entity or person than owned the business and the license.
But either way, this gentleman paid a lot of money from what I read in the paper for that land and property and building, so, I mean, there's...
But that's not a concern for the council.
Right. No, but I mean, like, there's money that's gone into some version of something there.
Right.
I don't know who, but...
Yeah, my guess is that the individuals who owned the property are the ones who that money was divided amongst, but those individuals did not have liability for the business and all the business debts. It's the classic, you set up a corporation to separate your personal assets from corporate assets. If the corporation goes bust, no one can take your house or your car. That's what's going on here.
You'll excuse me if it frustrates me.
Yeah.
So.
I understand that, and for your edification, generally, it would seem that most of the cases, the license would have been filled out and fully issued at that point in time if you're buying an ongoing business, and that way it would make it a little more normal, to use that word, that it would come before you as a transfer. In this particular case, and understandably, I mean, the council does issue, and a lot of communities issue subject to the filing of papers because the State Division of Taxation is so slow sometimes in getting the documents to your local communities that it becomes problematic in terms of approving licenses because, so you approve it subject to the paperwork. And obviously it wasn't issued, but that's really where it is. There is a right there, but to what extent?
So, Mike, would you give us that motion? If we want to create a new license and have it effective?
Sure. The motion would be to direct me to prepare an amendment to your liquor license ordinance, increasing the number of BV licenses by 1. I can do that. Whether you decide to have a first reading and a second reading is still up to you. I'll prepare it for your September 9th meeting. In the meantime, the applicant would file with Lou, this doesn't have to be part of your motion, I'm just letting the applicant know, the applicant would file with Lou an application for a liquor license, so that if you did create one, it wouldn't be floating, that the same night you created it, you could give it out to the applicant, so that...
The second reading could be several meetings after the
That's
first,
correct.
right? So then that night, we just issue it.
Right. Mr. Chairman,
Are you comfortable with that motion?
I am.
Is there a second to that motion? I'm not going to repeat it.
All right.
So.
I'll second for discussion. My discussion is even outside the liquor and the licenses. First and foremost, Mr. Luke, welcome to Bristol. We're happy to have you with your new establishment.
Right.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So you'll craft an amendment and increase the liquor license by one?
I will have that amendment for you for first reading on September 9th. You can
Thank you.
decide at that point to have the first reading or not, and to set the second reading.
You clear?
Concur.
And then we would have to have a, like a public hearing on the license though, right?
So you have to go through the
Yeah.
whole process.
So we
You're
have
going
to
to
like,
notify.
so all that would have to be done prior to the end of November.
All of that would have, all the neighbors would have to be notified, just like you do with any brand-new license.
Right.
They're doing all this because of being proactive, like you stated, so he'll be all set.
Right. It'll be set by December 1st, even if...
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Well, I would just
Thank you,
thank
Counsel.
you for being, like, being open to some other ways to, like, help solve the problem.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, if we have to wait till December, it's not the biggest issue because food is really the priority. But thank you very much, Counsel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is item G1, Public Service Appointments for August. You have item G1A,
Sir?
I'm the owner of Batista Bakery, and Tweets combined with Luke's, they own us $16,000. Are you guys going to issue a license?
Can you hold on just one second? Can I, help me with clarity here, can I allow this right now? Is there any reason? It's not because I don't want to hear what you want to say. I just want to make sure that...
This matter was on the agenda, so I have no problem with him telling you what he wants to tell you.
Sure. Welcome.
Welcome, please.
Yeah, I'm the owner of, one of the owners of Batista Bakery. We've been serving Tweets for 20 years, and they own us $16,000 1 year, the bread delivery. I think that building shouldn't have no license at all, in my point of vision, till they pay the bill.
So here's what I would suggest. Since this matter is coming up on September 9th, well, it's only going to be for introduction. When you get to the public hearing, you would want to hear from all individuals along those
Which,
lines.
for clarity's sake, the earliest that we would have a public hearing would be September 30th.
Yes.
That would be the earliest, and that...
Excuse me, because I knew Luke and John, they worked together to don't pay any bills, and he probably got some money under the table, and that's the way they did
I'm going to
business.
stop you right there, and the reason why is that I want to make sure that if any negative, that anybody can respond to that. But to be really clear, you heard my personal concerns that I expressed earlier. So you have all the opportunity, and I want you to, at the earliest, and I keep saying the earliest would be September 30th, because we may have it later than that.
Right.
And you will have all the right in the world, and I welcome you to come up and share your thoughts.
We've been in business here for 50 years, and we don't owe anybody any money, but we work 7 days a week, 100 hours a week, but we like to be treated fairly.
I'm very familiar. I actually grew up on 69 Franklin Street and would walk past the bakery every day.
I was 24 years old when I came there, and I'm 61 and I'm still there. Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? I get emotional with this.
I don't blame you.
I bet.
Did you want to share something?
I did. Hi. I'm Dominique Mello, and I'm here representing Mello's Fruitland. I have the same concern, the same issue. We're indebted from Tweets for over $18,000. And it's the same thing, you know, we delivered on good faith, and I know this has nothing to do with Mr. Luke per se in his application for the license, but my concern is that businesses are opening, closing, you know, just turning their back on their vendors, and then others are able to come to before the council and just apply for a different license. I understand the whole transference and all of that. I've been through this before, and I know you said that there will be a public hearing and we can voice our concerns, but I just wanted to, because I have sat here and just wanted to let you know that.
Quite patiently, too. Thank you.
And it's, you know, as well as Mr., Ennis, it's a hardship. And
Oh.
yes, you know, it was, like I said, we just delivered the product on good faith, and we just never thought that this would happen, and
Have you since put in some benchmarks now where you don't give the restaurants as much credit for you, so you don't have this happen for you again?
yes.
Because this is very frustrating, believe me. If I, you know,
You
I
know, and
understand your
this
pain.
is
I
just two
understand your pain.
businesses, along with, I
It's
can't
definitely a
imagine
hardship.
how many
So
else
how,
are.
so are they in bankruptcy, Mike?
So, no. They're not in bankruptcy.
Oh, they're not?
No.
Oh, so there's no way, there's no other claim on the
So-
creditors?
But like I said, if we're able to come back,
You will absolutely be invited to come back. You will know about it because everyone will know about it.
Okay.
You'll have an opportunity to speak your concerns to the public.
You don't have to answer the question, but...
Thank you.
Is it
Thank you.
relevant if they have a relationship with the new owner of this business? Like, he's starting a whole new business, Mr. Luke, like, and so the creditor, like, if Mellows provides anything to, you know, Lauren's or Luke's or whatever, I mean, is that relevant to whenever a discussion comes up? Because that's one, you know, that's one set of credit, and whether they pay their bills and what's happened with this other case, or is that not relevant?
The tough thing here is that if this were a transfer, this
It's
would not be
simple.
an issue.
Right, right.
And since it's not a transfer, you have the difficulty of a third person coming in who had nothing to do with this, and it's just coming to you, and it happens to be at the same space, in the same building, where these people were owed money from
Right.
someone totally separate, having nothing to do, there's no, the shareholders or stockholders are not related, it's...
Well, that was my question, is, you know, I think it would be one thing separate and apart, is if the one who holds the license owned the building, there should be something on the law, not just with liquor licenses, that vendors get paid when there's a sale of even the building itself. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, and that law doesn't exist, and you'll find in many, many cases that an individual owns the property and a business
Is separate.
corporation owns the business, and I got it, that's the normal way of doing business. But
You'll ex-
anyhow.
I said it already, you'll excuse me if that frustrates me. So did you
Herb
want to share
Mello,
something?
President of Mellows. The problem I have with this is that you're creating another license, and other people down the road are going to be doing the same thing. They're just going to be turning their backs on the vendors, like my wife said, and don't pay their bills, and because they don't want their license. That's what just happened with this case here. They knew what they were into, and they didn't want to pay the vendors, and they said, let's just sell the property without the license, without their liquor license, and now we're stuck, and other people are stuck with it, and when then they come before you, and you're going to create another license, and they're going to screw the vendors. That means other people down the road are going to be doing the same thing.
To be clear, I hear your frustration.
Interesting point.
This council hears your frustration. We're doing nothing until we hear everything. We are considering that possibility. That was what the vote was. So we are open to public hearing.
Yeah, I understand.
There's a lot
I
of
understand what
conversation
you're doing,
about this.
But I'm hoping that you put into consideration, other people down the road, looking at this now, they're going to do the same thing to other people. They're just going to sell the property without their liquor license and come before the council and get a license again, and the council will approve another license, which I think we should be considering to that right now. I hope you people really go into this, because we sell 90% of the Bristol restaurants, and I'm hoping that, you know, we don't get burned like we did on this one. We sell the product in good faith, like my wife said, and he told me he was not going to, you know, the word was, right? And he did. He did. You know, and it's a lot of money. It is a lot of money, you know.
So
And I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning doing my business up there 6 days a week, working at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm still here, and I'm going to go home, sleep, and get up at 2 at the same time. And I'm going to get, you know, this kind of hit from the town, I mean, from him.
I agree with you. As you heard from all of our comments, specifically, I agree with you. So why don't we do this? Mike, could you, for this council, find out what, if anything, that we can do on a go-forward basis? Obviously, we can't go backwards in time, but go-forward basis, what options we have in regards to keeping these more connected and more responsibility to them.
Yeah,
So-
and the most, you only have the power to create a new license, so.
So, but Mike, would it go to the question that we've gotten away from this, and for various reasons, but maybe the solution is to go back, and you have a set number of licenses, then the license becomes of value with whatever you're selling. I mean, we got away from that for whatever reason. I don't even know if I know the reason, because I may not have been on the council at that point in time, but,
You
it's
got
like
away from that because you wanted to accommodate business owners who are coming into town.
New ones and-
New
right.
ones, and you wanted to create, it was for business reasons.
Right.
But again, under the law, and no one can appeal this, only you have the power to create new, now, once they're created, that business owner has the right to keep it unless you revoke it for good cause. But no one can force you to create a new license.
So what
and
if we-
if you don't create a new license, there's no appeal to court to that.
I mean, there's a very good point that's been made about other people just walking away, but I don't know,
Oh, that hasn't-
over history, it hasn't happened a great deal.
I've
so-
been here since '95. This is the first time.
This is why I asked that question earlier.
But what happens if it just expires in December? I mean...
When it expires
what
in
do we do?
December, I'm going to have you reduce the number of licenses by one, so that eliminates that license. And then whether you create a new one or not for some new business, whether it be this business or some other business, is up to the sitting council.
No, I understand, but it doesn't help the problem.
No, it does not, absolutely. If you decided not to create a new license for December 1, it will not get these people paid.
That's why I say, I think, next council meeting, when Mr. Luke comes before you, he should sit down with Johnny and try to help out the vendors. Make some sort of an arrangement to help out the vendors before we create another liquor license. I think that's the way we should do it. Because now you're going to create a license, like I said before, that, other people are going to be doing the same thing down the road with this.
Yeah, that's why Mr. Luke walked out
Yeah.
smiling.
Yeah.
He walked out of here smiling, and we walked in here crying.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Luke Nolan, do they...
Mr. Clerk. Mr. Clerk.
We ready?
Yes.
Okay, back to item G1A, Harbor Commission Advisory Committee. There are two positions available with terms to expire in August of 2018. You have one applicant, Edward J. Quinn, 38 Anchorage Court, requesting council consideration to be reappointed.
Mr. Chairman. Go ahead. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to reappoint Edward J. Quinn to the Harbor Commission Advisory Committee.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Similarly, G1B, Post-Retirement Benefits Board, Fund Board of Trustees with term to expire in August 2018. Anthony Rago of 1176 Hope Street is requesting council consideration to be reappointed.
Motion to reappoint Anthony H. Rago Jr. to the Post-Retirement Benefit Fund Board of Trustees with the staggered term to be 3 years.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And you also have the resignation of Robert Aldrich, 7 Fox Hill Avenue, from the redevelopment agency.
Make a motion to receive and file the resignation of...
Accept the resignation.
Accept the resignation of Robert Aldrich and send a letter of thanks and thank him for his time, the years he served on this board.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? As I always do, thank you all for serving on our boards and commissions. This council very much appreciates your hard work, your effort, your time. We really do. Thank you.
The next item is item H1 from Councilman Stewart, continued from April 29th. This is the councilman's request for an update on the Tanyard Brook project.
You want me to go first, or you just want to say, and then I'll...
Let me just share first
Thanks.
the information that I have. I was in contact with Beta, and the update is that the surveyors have completed the work. They have passed the information on to the engineering folks, who will redesign the realignment for the brook. As I had told you before, they wanted to remove the brook from the rear of some of the properties and bring it to the edge of those properties to avoid flooding to the buildings. So at the present time, they are redesigning realigning, I should say, the brook.
So with that said, are we on a timetable? I know my colleague, Woman Mary Perella stated, when Beta was back here in February. And just to update the people, because this is such a large-scale project, and I was amazed going back with the research of Tanyard Brook Phase 1 and Phase 2, and I know it's late, so I'm going to be real quick about this, but Phase 1 started with a comprehensive study all the way back in 2001. And here we are, 2015, and we did get your report as of June, but the timeline between Phase 1 and Phase 2, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is not on fault, but just the timely process for these projects. And we have other projects that will be coming up facing us that we discussed with capital funds and bond money, and the release of those bonds as we have to appropriate accordingly going for the future. So that's why it's good to have these timelines and convey to the public, but I know the public, we needed those easements, which as of June, you got all those easements from all the people, and Kevin Aguiar, the engineer, stated that from that point, it would be 2 to 3 months. So that would put us to September, and then the redesign was 6 months. So we should be starting the project. He said February, but I'm thinking March, probably.
That's correct, because as you just pointed out, the first thing was to work through some of the neighbors to make sure that they were agreeable. There were 10 of them, specifically in the neighborhood of Prospect Street in Catherine. So those are on board. They've agreed to it. So the surveyors went out and they've completed the survey of all of the properties, and now they pass the information on for the engineering piece to realign the brook.
Yeah.
So that's what they'll be doing now.
I just want the public to be aware, and as my colleagues, we discuss that we have to actually be prudent with a timeline on projects, or else they just stay stagnant.
Mm-hmm. Actually, fairly recent, when we had one of those rainstorms, I did get a few calls very early in the morning, but and I did visit with the folks there, and one of the statements is that we were not doing anything about it. And I says, well, you stand wrong. I says, you should have seen surveyors around your property or in the neighborhood. And then she said, well, that being said, I did see some folks here, that said Beta, and I says, well, those are the folks that are working on our behalf.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What's your pleasure, Councilman?
I would say let's table this to October, when we could get another report and maybe from Beta to come in the October meeting. What did you say, Lou? The 21st?
Got it. So we have a motion to continue.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is item H2. This is also referred from July 29th. This has to do with the veterans' tax exemptions.
I asked for this at our last meeting to be put on this meeting. I know Chris has been waiting patiently, and looks like these gentlemen were waiting patiently too. We started off this meeting talking about we are the most patriotic town in the country. Thank you very much. And we also say thank you to our veterans. I believe I'm looking at a few right now, probably a lot more around the room too. I think Chris is going to give us a good piece of information here. I asked for this because we had exemptions that were applied. They were removed, but Chris, after request and some clarification, I know you're going to get into it a little bit more, but tell us what you found, Chris.
Okay, so what I have is that the 38 letters that I sent out that removed the veterans' exemptions, they will now be getting back 34 of them. There are 4 of them that do not have the proper paperwork, but based on all the information that I gathered from the federal government as well as from the state, and I would like to take this time to thank Michael P. Jolin, and I hope I said that right, Defense Counsel for the state, just so you know. So what happened was a gentleman came in and he said, I believe I qualify for an exemption. He had less than 6 months in, so I said, I don't believe you do qualify. He said, well, then you need to look at other applicants because they have the same amount of time that I have. So I went through all the applicants in my office. I found that 38 of them had the same amount of time or less like he did, so I told them that they do not qualify. It's my understanding or my interpretation that they do not qualify. The gentleman said, I'm pretty sure that we do. So I said, okay, here's the letter. I gave it to Michael. Michael said, okay, I can understand why you say that. We looked at the law, and the state itself says that it can go either way. So I said, really what I'm looking for is, could you give me a definition of what a veteran is? And can you tell me what the qualifications are? So basically, if you have served in the military and you fall under any of these wars that they have listed in this list that I gave everyone, and there's also handouts over there that you can actually see, you qualify. There is no time frame to it. Then the other section that I looked for, I said, okay, just let me know what exactly is your definition of a veteran. And they actually have 13 definitions, and that's through the federal government as well as through the state. So I actually looked at those, and there is nothing on the books for the state of Rhode Island to say so many days is what makes you a veteran. Anyone who has served is a veteran.
Veteran. Oh, great.
So at the end of the day, the majority that were removed are now reinstated?
34 of them will be reinstated. 4 of them need to come back with better paperwork for them.
So there's the potential of even more actually being reinstated?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
That's spectacular news to me. I was concerned about this, and I know there was multiple concerns out there, so we need a motion to receive and file on this one, unless somebody had a comment on it? No?
I believe once our ladies and gentlemen want to serve our country and put their name on the paper, they are a veteran, so.
It's a great way to show how much we care. I'm glad this situation got straightened out.
So we have, is that a motion?
Yeah.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
1 second? So we have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hi, Steve. Would you state your name for the record, please?
Steve Scuba, 32 Ridge Road, Bristol. I serve on the Veterans Council, and I had talked with a friend of mine and Mr. Texera, and I volunteered to offer a class on how to read and analyze DD-214s from World War II to now, because there have been several variations over the years, and currently there's 3 different variations. The Army does one, Air Force does one, Navy and Marines do their own, and they're very easy to forge. All you have to do is just jockey some things around, photocopy them a dozen times, and you can take a dishonorable discharge and make it look real good if you know what you're doing. However, how many people really know in your office how to read them? Do they know what a Title 10 personnel member is?
No, they do not.
These are the issues that you have to go over when you get them. But this all started with me, when I received a phone call from a person saying that they turned in a document from the VA saying that they were a disabled veteran. They received their papers saying they were a disabled veteran, and they were told from this office they were not.
Which was the whole point about having it in front of the council.
Exactly.
It was also, I speak for myself, and I know I speak for my colleagues, that this concerned us. In sharing that concern, this clarity was brought, so we are in a much better place. I'm disappointed we had to go down this road, but I'm also very happy that we're in this place, which is 34 of 38. I also hear, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, I hear you offering to sit with Chris, and I know Chris well enough that she would enjoy that conversation with you to get some clarity on and share your knowledge about this. Is that true? I just put you in the spot
Oh,
there,
no, you didn't
so.
put me on the spot.
Okay.
But I didn't get to the best part yet.
Okay.
When I looked over the document that I originally filled out once upon a time, I believe that document goes back to 1984, because the last thing on there is Grenada. That was where the $250 tax exemption comes up for the veteran. I was paying, I think, $1,200 in taxes back then. That translates roughly now into about $1,300 based on what I pay for taxes now. These figures that you see in this document, 44-3-4, is pennies on the dollar based on what's happened over 34 years or so since that thing is, however many years. It's getting late. My math is off. So we're looking at something for a disabled veteran at 0% at somewhere around $1,500 in today's time as to what the baseline should be for that tax exemption. And there's nothing that states that that baseline at 0%, matter of fact, I don't think there's anything even in there at 0%. You don't even count 0%. The VA counts 0% as a disability. You have all rights to the VA hospital, to the veterans home, to every veteran's whatever, at 0%. So that person at 0% gets the same tax exemption as that person at 80%. There's no staggered number. Now, I offered a solution to Mr. Texera. I gave it to him in his office a little while ago. Even at $25 per 10% would be something that you should or maybe look into and possibly have a workshop on.
Yeah.
Because somebody at 0% can work. You know, I mean, you could get 0% for a hearing loss and still mow lawns for fee day pot. Who cares if you're deaf? You're mowing lawns. But that person at 80% is not going to work. And he's on a fixed income. And he spends most of his time at the VA. And he's basically dead. He just hasn't been told yet. If you look at the statistics, most World War II veterans are dead, or almost. The Korean War veterans are close to there, and they project that Vietnam veterans won't see Social Security because of Agent Orange-related diseases. So as long as we're so patriotic, now's the time to step up to the plate.
Agreed. Let's set up that workshop. I agree.
Yeah, because the new guys coming back, I hate to say it, are offering themselves at a tremendous rate.
Yeah.
So now's the time to do it.
Agreed.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe in the workshop that we're going to set up earlier on the other topic. We could do both that night.
Did we make a motion for a workshop? Or?
Actually, what we can do is we have a motion pending right now.
Okay.
We can include that in that motion that we have a workshop.
Thank you.
So we have just amended that motion, and it was seconded already. Is there any other discussion?
Well, I just like to ask this.
We can't hear you.
I'd just like to ask this. It seems to me that, Chris, you have some pretty definite precedents and regulations to work from, don't you?
I do.
So the question I have, is this a matter of fact-finding, or is this a matter of us taking action to change the town's policy?
Well, I think I probably should sit down with Mr. Scuba to understand his point of view, to actually go over what he's calling a Title 10. And I think that he's actually talking about the $66 that we give for partial veterans. That's what his take is, I believe. But I really need to sit down with him and go over it. So what I would ask you to do, instead of creating a workshop right now, just to continue it for the next council meeting, let me talk to Mr. Scuba, and then after that, we'll go to a workshop.
Well, I think it sounds just right. And what would be very helpful, I would think, Chris, before the next meeting, would be for you to write a one-page of any possible changes in your recommendation.
Okay. That sounds good.
Mary, do you want to add something?
Well, I was just, I just wanted to be clear. I thought there were two different issues. One was the issue that you guys have already addressed.
Which
and
is
the
clarity.
And the other is to, I think, change policy as to how much we would be giving depending on the amount of disability.
That was
Yes.
And that was
exactly
one
what
would be
was
the
said.
workshop
That would be
aspect.
the workshop.
Correct.
And
Right.
the point is that the more disability, the higher the exemption should be.
Yeah, and it's a minor amount. It's
And I
not-
actually,
No, I
I do
understand.
agree with Chris, though, that I think it would be appropriate that we have the workshop after our next council meeting, so she can come back after speaking with you,
Right.
so we're not
Yeah.
shooting in the dark.
Well, I just want to
Excuse
make
the
sure we're on
analogy.
the same
So-
page.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, beautiful. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, the next item is item I-1. This is from the Executive Director of the Rhode Island Clean Water Finance Agency regarding the proposed legislation, Community Septic System Loan Program, and Sewer Tie-in Loan Fund.
2 cents on this one, Diane? No? This was pending legislation talking about low-interest loans.
Yeah, I
So-
think I have it. They passed a law basically outlawing cesspools. Whenever you sell a house within so many months, you have to replace the cesspool. What this program is doing is saying that there's low-interest money available that residents can apply for through clean water funding to help them finance the cost of replacing the cesspool.
So if I'm a resident and I have a cesspool, not a septic system, a cesspool.
Cesspool, right.
Big difference. Then, and I want to take advantage, or at least be considered to take advantage of this low-interest loan. Who do I talk to? How do I take the next step?
It's through Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management.
Okay. So we'll make sure that this information is available to the public and they can reach out to, put it right on our website. I love it. Great. So is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Just a quick question. Do we know how many people have cesspools in Bristol approximately? Jose? Yeah, he's here.
Not paying attention.
Do we know about
Approximate
how many
number
people have
about-
cesspools in Bristol approximately?
Not septic system, cesspools.
As of last year, I believe there was 2-1. If you remember, the gentleman came for the loan, and he was denied as a poor risk. And the other one, I know the state was looking to have that taken care of.
Right. But they were wondering if you knew how many properties in Bristol had
Have
cesspools.
cesspools. 2.
Oh, they're
Only two?
Oh,
Two.
okay.
Oh, 2 in the whole
Well, if
town?
either one of those residents would like to take advantage of this
Okay.
low-interest loan,
I was
go
gonna say
ahead
we
and
should send a
contact
letter and
us.
let them know, but one of
Yeah.
them already knew and came to us. so that's-
Okay.
Okay, well, that's not a huge problem.
And all
then.
those in favor of the receive and file?
Aye.
I think I said,
Yeah.
I didn't?
Yeah, we did, we did, yeah.
Gosh.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
There you
The next item is from the administrator regarding the last night concert.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you were waiting for some. Okay. Yes, just a reminder that we have last night's concert coming up September 6th. It will start at 5 o'clock with the first show at 5, and that's by Mike DiMucci, and follows by the orchestra or the Philharmonic, I should say, at 6 o'clock. So looking for all the support. I provide a list of the folks that we have sent out requests for sponsorships. If any of you can be of assistance, reaching out to any of these, please do. That would be very much appreciated. The ones that you see blocked out, those are the ones that have already been returned. I mean, they've already
They've already donated
responded.
for this year?
Correct, they've already contributed.
contributed.
Yes. So don't call those, okay?
Okay.
All others have not.
Tony, how much more are you looking for and how much you received is, I don't see, or maybe there's, I didn't see any dollar figures.
No, I don't think we have those right there. But last year, we were a little shy by almost $10,000.
Okay.
So if we can fill the void this year, certainly be very much appreciated.
And
We added to the budget, though, this past
We
budget.
did add another, I believe, 3,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, if we could just,
Yeah.
because of the magnitude of this, have an itemized report after the dust settles, after the concert, as an update.
Right.
It's a great idea.
I can actually provide, if you like last year's, I can forward that to you, and then we'll do a follow-up on this one for this year.
That'd be great.
Tony, I just noticed Taco John White, they were a big supporter in the past, and Taco John White?
Yes.
The big supporter in the past. I just noticed no letter was sent. It's not...
Because they
They do the Philharmonic.
They pay for the Philharmonic.
They pay for the
We felt it
orchestra.
inappropriate to ask for more.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I think you're good. That answered my question.
Right,
Thank you.
that's $25,000 right there to start off.
Yeah, they don't need a letter.
We
Thank
certainly
you.
don't want to knock twice, you know. So So certainly looking forward to seeing our residents. I know we're not going to have a meeting until after that. So this is an exciting time to come down, enjoy the waterfront, considering everything else that we've gone through here in Bristol through the last month and a half. Certainly, this is a great opportunity to come and celebrate the end of the summer.
Thank you, Tony. Make a motion to receive and file.
Second?
There's a motion to receive and file. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item J1. This is bid 833, the exterior wayfinding signage, Phase 1. You have one bid submitted. This is from the Harmon Signs Incorporated of Toledo, Ohio. The bid amount, and this is the base bid grand total of $108,906.
I think we might want to go out to and rebid this one. Huh?
I would agree.
I think we should
Only one.
rebid it. I think we either should rebid it or we should reduce the scope.
Well, how about
We're gonna be
both?
hard pressed for money, and I don't think we should spend that much money on that purpose.
Nope.
What did you expect, like half of this, maybe? or-
No.
Maybe less than half?
Yeah.
Um,
And when you say maybe,
Yeah,
you mean absolutely less than half? Yeah.
25%.
The bid I know Ed was going to look at, and I think there were some deduct alternates that we could pull out. So I think we'll look at that and
And rebid it?
rebid it. We will rebid it.
They said this is the base bid. Was the base bid grand total?
base bid? I wasn't sure.
No, that's like the whole thing.
Oh, the whole thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the whole thing. That doesn't include any deducts.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it would be less than that if you reduced things.
We'll look at it and then obviously rebid it.
Probably hard to get to where you want to be from that point.
So I'll make a motion that we go out and rebid this with some modifications.
You can also negotiate, can't you?
Yes,
Call,
since
since
it's a
just.
sole bidder, you can negotiate.
But can you call other people and discuss it with other people
Can
or
you
not?
negotiate that much?
Might be a good idea just to refer to the
you're not gonna negotiate it.
administration. In the best
Well,
interest.
I think if you do negotiate, you'll have to eliminate some scope.
So it was suggested that we refer this to the administrator to act in the best, and obviously community development, to act in the best interest of the town with the knowledge that this does not make sense to us. Great.
I have to agree, for as much as we would like to get some of the signage fixed as ASAP, certainly this is not the amount.
We
we're
opted
looking
for gold signs on
Yes.
this one, is that what happened?
That's my amended
I'll
motion.
second the motion.
A
By the
motion,
way, if I could just interject this, separate from that, but important is that we fix up these street signs so that we can read it in both directions.
so the one-way
I know
signs?
that's a separate activity, but I think that's an activity we could do in some other way.
So we have a motion and a second.
Actually, if I may,
Discussion?
if actually, what you're referring to, Councilman Hirschhoff, it's precisely part of this package, because we wanted to be consistent. If we were going to do it, this was the process to do it, not do piecemeal, where we put up signs that eventually we take it down. It's not consistent, and it's
Was that going to be
uniformed.
new street signs with something on both sides the way it's done?
That's correct.
Well, I think that's probably right, because what we have now is unduly crude for
But
this town.
not at this amount.
Not
But
this
we
amount.
will be looking for other ways to
And
do
you
it.
could grow that, too. You could do some and not all.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the next is the periodic Bristol County Water Authority report, 2015.
I move that we receive and file and perhaps indicate some gratitude to Mr. Klepper.
No, this is the other one. K1, I'm sorry.
He may still want to give gratitude to Mr. Klepper
Well,
on
we can
this,
do that
so-
with K2.
Do your
We
gratitude.
receive and file this
I'm
one,
talking
Halsey?
about AA1, I guess, I'm sorry.
So I would imagine, Councilor Evershaw, the annual report, we're going to receive and file?
File, yeah.
Yes.
That's what I
K2.
heard from
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I heard a
I
second from
second
Ed.
that.
And we're going to add gratitude?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And K2,
As far as that one, I make
That's
a
the one I
motion
was
to...
referring to.
Yeah.
You want to make a motion to receive and file that?
So moved.
Second.
And second, but I just want to commend Director Sylvia, part of this report, who brought attention to the board an issue that, from the Bristol Town Council, a group of homes in northern end of Bristol for many years, currently on wells and wish to tie into our system. and they had an estimated total project cost. Of course, they've been doing some major infrastructure improvements through the 3 towns, so it's good that Mr. Sylvia was advocating for our parts of town that is much needed over a period of time.
Well noted. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Next, we have a request for executive session for the conclusion of the public agenda, and now we have the individual council member agenda items, beginning with the chairman.
I have in my possession the only, see if I can get it out of the envelope here. The envelope, please. Bear with me. The only real 4th of July parade, and sorry, license plate.
I want it.
And I got this from Ray Levy, and I asked him for this because we have all of these discussions about getting one of these, applying for one of these, but we always seem kind of on an 8.5 by 11. So I want to hand it around so everybody can take a look at it and see what it looks like. We have been talking about this evening patriotism, representing the town, and I can't think of a better way of doing that with and then a license plate on your car that says the 4th of July celebration in Rhode Island. If you're thinking to yourself, how do I do that? If you go on the website, on the 4th of July Committee website, you can fill out an application. They are far enough away that we need some more people to do that. You can keep your own license number, so if you've got a number 1, for example, and you are worried about losing it, you won't. That would be put on the new license plate. It is a great way of showing your community spirit. It's a great way of showing how proud we are of where we live. I'm going to pass it off that way.
Better in real life.
So the reason why I brought that in, again, was I thought it was apropos for this evening because of all the conversations that we've been having. It's a great opportunity. If you're not sure how to do it, if you're not a web person, reach out to me, reach out to someone you know on the 4th of July committee, anybody, and we'll get you. It's an easy printout. It's not very expensive, and we have applications, as the administrator just pointed out to me, at Town Hall. So if you're not a web person, come on in, grab one, fill it out, send in the check, and let's get these going, because I've got mine on there too, and they can't make any unless they get to a minimum number. So do your part, come on out, grab one of those applications, print one on our line, and let's show our community spirit as we have. And in regards to that, I just think it's important that we just say it one more time, the amazing community spirit that was shown. I said that we're all proud of where we live, and it was just totally impressive. It was absolutely impressive, the showing. It was the showing of the family, the showing of the close friends. Chief, you did a great job with it. You really did. It was smooth and effortless to get in and out, and as many people that were there, it was easy and was also safe, and safe was probably the first important thing. A couple of weeks ago, the administrator, myself, and the director, DPW director, Mr. McBride, and I went to Rhode Island Resource Recovery, which is the recycling center at the Johnston landfill, which was really, really interesting. It is massive amounts of conveyor belts and people picking out stuff and changing things. So I thought Halsey has been making it a point of reading a couple of things from Washington. I thought I would give you a couple of tips every once in a while. I'm going to steal some of Tim's thunder on this one. How do you recycle a plastic water bottle? And here's the question. Do you put the cap on, or do you take the cap off? And the answer is, and I actually said what the chief said, take the cap off. I'm sorry, you're wrong. And here's why.
Cap on.
Is that with the cap on, the bottle stays in this shape. It looks like a bottle. When it gets flattened like that, the machines actually think it's paper. And what it does is it slows down the process. Sometimes it gets mixed in with the paper, and then they have pickers that actually pull it out. So how do you recycle a plastic bottle? Use it, put the cap back on, don't squish it down, and it'll keep the shape, and the machines actually will separate them all out. Machines themselves will do clear plastic, and then laundry containers, the Tide bottles and whatever. So my point in sharing this to you is that the recycling committee did a massive amount of work to share these things, and I think we have an ordinance that we were going to read tonight that we didn't because it needs a couple of tweaks, and that's great. I think it should be getting those tweaks. But these little things, when you're not sure what to recycle, here's a couple of quick answers. water bottles, Tide bottles, those cans, cardboard boxes. And don't let things stop you. For example, pizza boxes. If you're not sure how much grease and all that stuff, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Honestly, don't let that stop you. Throw away the bottle. Put these in the recycle bin. Put everything you can in the recycle bin. And the things you're not absolutely sure of, it's okay. We'll get to the next step on those things, but those little steps will make a big difference. Why do you care? If you remember, we talked about prices going up in hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's why you care. So everybody has to do their little step, and that's one of the things. Put the cap back on your bottle, throw it in your recycle bin, and the guys will come around and pick it up every week. Absolutely amazing. So thanks again to the chief. Thanks again to Chief Martin, too. I don't think I said that part of it. And thanks to my colleagues. It was just, it was impressive. I've come that close with Richard Jean George's funeral in being impressed with the amount of support from not just Bristol, but our community. And hats off to everyone. I'm in awe. Thank you.
Mr. Sweeney.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. You music to my ears. I am so happy you loved it, and we're recycling more, and you support in a big way, and it's great. I think it's fantastic. Saturday, the Harbor Festival, huge success, very, very exciting. I know Archie was there, Tony, you were in the trench, Mary, I saw you, and Ed, and
I was on
I know
vacation.
you were on vacation, and Halsey, I know you tried to make it. And anyway, it was a great success. We had a sunset cruise, sold out, both went around the harbor, really exciting. We served 300 meals, clam boil, it was great, and it was a very nice crowd. The band was there, a lot of participation from the local fishermen and the residents, and it was really just a fun event. And if you didn't make it, put it on your calendar for next year. So anyway, Greg Marsili will be back next council meeting with actually what figures of how much we raised, and all that money goes to Rockwell Park, the kids. So it's great. It was a really nice event, and I was pleased that it all happened. And most importantly, at the Blessing of the Fleet, we had a moment of silence for Sergeant McKenna. And I just want to say my thoughts and prayers are with you and the family, and my families we're all thinking about you, and I just thought it was beautiful how the community comes together. We are really, really special here. So have a good night. Thank you.
Ms. Perella.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think you may have a future in writing a column in the Saturday paper. You know, if Sarah Kite ever retires or something, you can write your tips in there.
Be like the auto guys, him and Tim.
Click and clack.
You know, because you make it like understandable. You don't come away going, now I have to be the arbiter of grease on my pizza box. So I have a couple of items actually, and going back to my first motion this evening, Tony, when I asked you and the Veterans Council, I, of course, want to make sure you include the family. I know they probably need a break at this point, a little while, you know, to recoup, but to make sure that they're involved in the tribute that we would do. And, you know, just to reiterate, as everyone else, that was just an amazing show of support, and it was very, very, very impressive. And one thing I forgot to mention earlier, that, you know, we were sitting in church near the, there are about maybe 40 Green Berets there, and here are these incredibly strong, fierce, fearless men, and you could hear the sniffles and see them wiping their eyes, and it was very impressive of the camaraderie and the closeness of that family in the military, but I think particularly in like the Special Forces units. So I also wanted to, my other item is to congratulate Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church and the people involved, Father Zeno, Pat McCarthy, and the principal of their school, Mrs. Maloney, on the grant they received to install the solar panels. They received $190,000 to install 160 solar panels that are up now. They got up pretty quickly on their gymnasium / parish center roof. And so many probably saw the article in the paper, but it would, you know, obviously you buy back the credits from the grid, but you sell them back. But it was enough to generate power for the next 25 years to power the entire school complex, is what they're anticipating. And that is really remarkable, and it's a great a way to look at renewable energy. What I found most interesting, let me just go back. The grant from Rhode Island was from Rhode Island Renewable Energy and the Office of Energy Resources and Regional Greenhouse Gases Initiative. What I thought was interesting about that when I read the article, though, is the grant, I think they gave out 5 grants to schools. And all of them were private or parochial schools. And I was curious about, and I'm still curious about, why there weren't any public schools on there, and whether it was just too complicated for some of the, because of the larger school districts, or I'm not sure what. But I mean, I think it's a great tribute to the folks at Our Lady of Mount Carmel, and I would encourage all of us to look at that, both on our, town buildings, we've talked about it, and on our other school buildings, because they anticipate saving over those 25 years $300,000, and that is quite a remarkable amount of money. So, and the last item I have is on a tree issue, and I think Tony knows where this is going to go, but I know that we've had a great deal of discussions about trees coming down, trees staying up. People have come into us before and said a tree was taken down, and I believe we had set up a process, if I remember correctly, where the tree was supposed to be posted if it was going to come down. And in our area, there were 2 trees that were taken down, like, relatively quickly, without any notice being posted. And I just want to, ask the administrator to just double-check that to make sure that that process takes place. I always find it somewhat ironic, because we have people who literally come to us, meeting after meeting after meeting, begging for trees to be taken down, and all of a sudden, in other instances, the trees are just down. So I just wanted to bring that up as well. So that is all I have. Thank you very much.
Mr. Stewart.
I'll just touch on 2 of your topics, because they were good topics. As far as the trees, maybe we need a whole assessment after what she's explaining in Hope Street and whatnot throughout the town, all these mishaps. Maybe we have to take an assessment of all our tree inventory to be proactive on that end, too. So that's a very good point. On the other point, yes, it's excellent of Mount Carmel of them getting those solar panels. And we've been busy as a council, and we're on our way with LED and whatnot. And now that Director McBride is on board, and we talked about this in the past, to revisit the study for the landfill caps after we built the animal shelter, because there's more and more facilities up there. I think as a council, we should really sit and try to revisit that and the scope of it to see if it's feasible. I know there was a plan in place years ago. I don't know if it has to be revised, but I think to that point, we have to be proactive on that topic, too. Just a couple weeks ago, thank you to organizer Ethan Tucker and the Parks and Recreation Department once again for the annual William McCarthy swim. That was this year's color, which I really liked. It's a little bright, so every year is a different color. So collecting them all. So they did a very good job, and to all the volunteers and everyone who came down for it, and all the proceeds, once again, helping our community and involvement. And Tony and I didn't do the swim, we were just, But that's, what happened was that morning, and this is the sad part, is that Saturday morning, we were with the Veterans Council celebrating VJ Day, and we were commenting to each other of the celebration of, our soldiers returning home from all the wars and making that day special as a celebration for our soldiers, only to get the news that same day of Peter Andrew McKenna. So it was just ironic that day happened. Other than that, I hope everyone's having a safe summer. I know school's right around the corner, and all the kids are gearing up. I'm sure they're very excited to get back. And with that, I just thank Mike Davis, our Sergeant, Archie Martins, and everybody who came out tonight for a very productive meeting, and everybody tuning in at home. Thank you.
Mr. Harrisoff.
Diane Williamson, I'd like to publicly compliment you and thank you for working out that extension of the grant that we weren't yet totally utilizing, so that we can get all the work done on the Marine Center and get it all done before the winter weather. I think it's just great you persuaded them that the
Nice job.
wisdom of that move.
That's true.
And I hope that you're also going to get the other grant for the buildings, because that's such a no-brainer where we're going to spend that money anyway. So those two things are of great help to the town. Thank you. And I'd like to comment on the what's related to that, the fact that our harbor events are really great this year. And not only what you did, Tim, which was wonderful, but also this whole summer we've seen more boats, more activity, good racing. This evening was a terrific time to race. I'd have been out there, except I felt it was more important to be here at the town council.
Good for you. Good for you.
We're lucky to have this harbor, and I think it's a fine thing that the town council and the administrator and the new harbor master are striving so hard to make the best of it. And I think we should feel good about the effort and its results, and be engaged continually to make it better and better. I took a drive this afternoon to go down to Fairview Drive, and I'm sure you're going to get that done before winter, but is that going to happen pretty soon?
I'm glad you did bring that up, because I was in contact with National Grid regarding that and a couple other projects, actually also in regards to your request, so trying to catch up on things. And he apologized because they were supposed to have done them exactly as we said 2 weeks ago. It would have been the following week after the council meeting. That did not happen because they put that on hold. They want to include other projects, because as you see, they're doing quite a bit of work on Hope Street and a few other areas. So they want to be inclusive rather than piecemeal it. So when they come in, they'll do it all at once. But
Well,
it will be
that's
done.
certainly
It will
efficient.
be done before the winter.
Do you think it might be done for the next council meeting, or not necessarily?
I cannot assure. The last time I put myself on the line, because I took exactly what they said at the meeting, that it would be done the following weekend, and that didn't happen. So, but they assure me they would be done before the winter.
Well, that's really what matters, and the residents will be very grateful when that does get done.
Right. They know it's quite a bit of a concern, excuse me, they know it's quite a bit of concern to get it plowed under those conditions on that road. So
You
they-
really couldn't plow, you'd wreck
No, you
things.
could not the way it is.
And be bad for the residents. And I understand the engineering and permitting is on track to do the outlet from the grounds of this wastewater treatment plant next spring?
That is very true. Actually, I just reviewed today the initial study that will be going to all of the agencies. Beta prepared the document, and it will be going to all the agencies for their review, and we'll get feedback from them as to what we need to do next. That is
Those
correct.
kinds of activities, in my experience, just tend to drag and drag and drag, and I'm sure you're pushing them to get it done.
This is moving along pretty fast, believe it or not. You know, they've done the survey, and they now are submitting all the work. They've they have all the easements that are necessary, because that was one of the questions, you know, are we going to have any issues to run the pipeline from the sewer plant to the Walker's Cove, and that didn't appear to be the issue. They said they have everything lined up for that.
Well, it'd be great if that can get done in the spring. I've had a number of citizens approach me, and perhaps others have too, about street sweeping. I wish Kevin was still here. But I went along Wood Street particularly today, and there's a lot of places where it would appear we haven't really swept it very well, even since the winter. Sand, cigarette butts, and one thing or another. And we've got fine equipment for the street sweeping, and I would urge you, Tony, to ask Kevin to use that more and get these streets to be properly cleaned.
Well, we actually did, in some areas, as many as 2 passings, you know, this year thus far. But what has happened is, with the storms that we've had, it just has washed quite a bit of sand back to the roads, and it appears in some areas that we haven't done anything, but yet we have. So, but Kevin has been out there to some of these other areas to redo it, you know, as many as 3 times.
But it's asserted to me that some of these streets, like parts of Wood Street, have never been even swept since the winter sand. So I think that's one of the reasons you reorganized that department to get this done. Because we've got that great street sweeper, and I think we should use it more and keep these streets looking the way they should be. I was just in New York City. You walk along there in the center of Manhattan, and there's just no litter or cigarette butts or anything, and we should be the same way.
Without the traffic.
Yeah.
Without the traffic and the other stuff. Right. And I want to thank the planning of the town. It's awfully nice of you to hold last night's Philharmonic Band on my birthday, and I appreciate it very much, and I will particularly enjoy the event. We won't get into the age that this is. We'll leave that out of this.
So the fireworks are returning.
And we'll make sure that there is a cake.
Thank you very much.
Town Administrator, agenda items?
It was already pointed out, but I would be remiss not to restate, in having worked very close with the chief, I have to give him great credit for behind-the-scenes work, just to make sure that things worked out as they needed to. I mean, nothing runs smooth without proper preparation and organization, and this is pretty evident. Not because he's sitting next to me, but certainly he did quite an outstanding job when he came to make sure that we were there first, because it was our hero. He stood not to second place, but definitely we were to take the lead, whether it was escorting the body here to town or to actually escort, the cortege to the cemetery. And it was pretty evident, and he was there to support any of the folks that was necessary, even to the point of working with Warren. As you notice, we brought actually the mobile command center to Warren to make sure that if anything happened, we would be readily and available to assist in any way it would be necessary. So I have to commend the police department, the fire department as well. They stood out there and provided quite a bit of support, whether through the fire police or just our volunteers as a whole. They were very much. The Boy Scouts, they also were represented at the entrance of the cemetery with the flag, American flag. We had 5 of our scouts there saluting and holding the flag. It was quite impressive to see those 5 young men there. It really was very touching, I can tell you. I have to congratulate Walter as well for the work done for the summer camp. We've wrapped up, and we had anywhere between 450 to 600 children that attended camp this summer. So it was quite a task, but it got done very safely, again, with the support with the police. The chief made sure that there was somebody around keeping tabs on our children and keep them safe, and they did a great job on that. And the library also had the parade, end of the summer parade, last Friday. It was quite interesting to go down there and see all the activities behind the building, then obviously the parade afterwards. So with that being said, thank you.
The motion would be to convene into executive session pursuant to 42465A2 relative to potential litigation with clipboarding.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.